Want to place a free bet up to 100 USDT without any chance of losing? Because if you lose, you get the $100 USDT back and you can just bet again if you want. Well, eSportsBet is offering first-time depositors exactly that. Deposit some crypto on the site, make any bet up to 100 USDT as your first bet. If you lose, contact the mods on the site or Discord, tell them IOE sent you and you want the bet forgiveness, and they'll give you 100 USDT back. Therefore, you can have a cheeky bet on whatever you want, and how badly could it really go? Because you get it back, don't you?
Chris is still into the picture. Oh, still very much in the round. Oh, Chris, he's found 3. It's down to a 2-on-2. Chris, can he close this with an ace? Oh my God!
He gives him a chance at least, and this CZ kill could be everything. Finally, Zeus, he does something!
Looking for a second, he connects it. Oh, and he gets a third as well. Surely he's not going to pull this off. Oh, Caldera, the man, the myth, the beast. Zaiwu, no help really, but he's still hitting shots. He's already got 3. And 5. Oh my God, Zaiwu! Unbelievable!
TikTok, time to rock to steal a classic. Welcome everybody to the show. It is another episode of By the Numbers, Revenge of By the Numbers, that is. And I'm your host, Semmler, and joining me tonight, Thorin. So, guys, how's it going? How you doing, Thorin? You have a good week?
Yeah, not bad in general. Like, I'm actually, if people have noticed, like, I've got a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but this is like the week where I have to decompress a little bit, then I can go back on the content. Obviously, I went mad the week before, so just still working in my space.
It was like, it started off as a quiet week, you know, like, okay, not too much going on. I caught a cold, so I was out of it for a few days. So I was just like, all right, low key, you know, just kind of keeping tabs on the news. Then all of a sudden, the past couple, like, what, let's say 24 hours, 36 hours, just all of a sudden, it's just like everything is
problem,
popping at once.
I am just an irascible character, Anna. Like, I can't really, I'm just incorrigible, Anna. Because when you said that, I was like, it's weird. What, you just went to bed? You didn't get some sort of a test or, you know, like fucking start like seeking out, you know, some, oh, like, just fucking walked it off. Cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. That was how we used to do it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
That is actually, yeah. No, didn't feel compelled to test. Didn't feel compelled to do any of that. No, just kind of like.
Actually, that was one thing even before all that garbage, by the way, that I actually was always shocked about Americans. There's like stories where they were like calling the doctor when they had the flu. Like, what? You do that if something happens. Like, if you get the flu, you go in bed for 3 days, don't you? What the fuck? Who's going to the doctor? What? What's he going to tell you? Go back to bed and have a coffee or something in it? Like, you know,
it's still hanging in there. But for whatever reason, I can't quite shake this one. It's like on its last legs. But I was out walking the dog and, you know, getting out today, so it was fine. It's just I was so pissed, dude, because I was on a 5.5 week streak where I didn't miss a single day at the gym, like just training every day, and I was just loving life. It was great, no injuries, no nothing, just going every day. And then the streak gets broken by some lame ass cold that just lays me up in bed for a day and then just like lingers, you know, just lingers. It's not enough to totally take you out. So you're still doing stuff, but you don't feel 100. You can't go to the gym. You can't do anything. You know, you're still just waiting for it to give up. So yeah,
dude, that's like my insane story. I've told you this one before, but you know when I did like I actually did a bigger one later just to show off. But like when I first ever did like a streak in esports, it was actually very early on in my YouTube channel. It's when I went independent. So because I was independent, I had to make money. I was just on the grind. So every day I would do a video famously, right? And people often said it. Why did it stop at like 56 or whatever? It's like I have a very good story. Why? Because back then, Sam, I even used to be super diligent. Like I'd do one before if I knew I'm going to do something the next day. So I even had a video for like a travel day. It's the story when I went to that MLG in Aspen. And then when I went back, there was all problems with the flight and it got rerouted to Guam and Japan to Korea instead of directed to Korea. And it took a day and a half extra. And so between delays on the flights and that, I missed 2 whole days of the video. So when I got back, it was like, well, I'm just fucked out of the street.
It was out of your hands.
Oh, that was like some fucking fate shit. Like I'm just like, that's why I had to do it again later to reach like 100. It's like, they won't let me reach 60 men, but I'm gonna, I know exactly. Y'all can't stop me.
That's just the way
I still don't know where Guam is or what Guam is, Semmler. When I landed, it was just like
an island.
It was just like Hawaii, but with really bad weather. It was just like raining all the time. I was like, what is this? No, but I was going from fucking like LA to Korea, wasn't I? Like, I remember just landing like, you are now in Guam. Like, well, that's excuse me, who am I again? I'm like, it's just fucking like Quantum Leap or something. What's going on? You know what I mean? Like,
isn't that the nightmare though?
Passport. I know.
When you get on a plane and then just winds up in some you wake up, you're like, wait, what? Where are we? Totally great. Just out of control. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've had a good week, mate. I mean, I see that there's stuff's been popping off already. I opened Twitter today, and much to my pleasant surprise, I see Thorin trending, so I'm always just like, so who has he triggered now? Let's go take a look. What is going
something
on?
Sad. This might sound like a weird detail, but it's actually something Richard taught me, and sadly he's right. Basically, because in the modern day, algorithms run everything. Well, an algorithm can only take the inputs. It's like a human. It can't determine, like King Solomon, that would be an unwise choice.
Yeah.
Well, famously, the modern day activist movies, you just get loads of people who don't even know the person, but are just part of your activist group. So essentially it's like human botnet, and you just mass report something. And if you do that on Twitch, then it'll get taken down. You just have to get... So sadly, what Richard taught me, this is something fans won't know, you don't just block because people are arseholes. You have to block when they show that they're going to be hostile to your career. Because what they'll do otherwise, Semmler, for real, is if you just let those people just circulate and mute them, they will get like 3,000 people together to mass report your thing and get your shit just locked for no reason. And even if you get unlocked, it's going to cause you problems, isn't it? It's going to make you lose money for a YouTube video. It's going to mean you can't tweet for 12 hours. It's going to be an arsehole problem. So the problem is, I used to just try and surf on the fun of trolling people and say, fuck 'em, who cares anyway. But like now I have to sort of play it careful. Like that's why I have to mass block people and sometimes be like, right, guess we have to just let this one fucking breathe a little bit, move back.
Yeah. Well, there's
a lot of that going on.
The whole idea of like, oh look, he mutes and he blocks, and it's like, well, I think Yasuke actually tweeted this earlier, and I think he was bang on the money. Where you don't get in arguments anymore because you're not going to change anybody's minds with arguments.
Yes.
So what you do is you refine your points with people who understand where it is that you're coming from. Because with somebody who completely disagrees with you, you have to cover so much ground just to get them to start understanding, like, what you're even having a discussion about, let alone actually be able to have a discussion about it. I've run into this a lot with recent conversations as well. Had some friends over, where we started talking about one of those spicy topics where, there's a lot of division, a lot of heated, and it's just like the amount of time I had to spend to just here is like the framework that we're looking at this problem from, the backstory, the context, blah, blah, blah. You're filling them in on all this information so they can even understand like where the conversation starts. You're just like, fuck, and just throw in the towel at this point. It's like, it's not even worth the time because they're not going to agree with you anyways at that point, right?
Yep.
It's such a weird experience. So like Yasuke was bang on the money where you're just like, don't even bother having an argument with these people because you're just wasting your time. Twitter is not a platform where you're going to be able to have an argument to like get that kind of information across to them in a concise way. And then it's going to take literally a miracle for them to change their mind. So why would you let those kinds of people just poison your experience of the Bird app when you could just mute them or block them and then there you go, done. Do you think it's fun to open the app and to literally have like some mentally unhinged person who's literally like every little bit of news about you that comes out, they're just like, well, I hope he's not going to be there. Well, I hope Semmler's not going to be there. Oh, I hope he's a piece of shit. Semmler's a piece of shit. Did you know Semmler's a piece of shit? It's like, why do you want to see that?
I'll give you an example of
mentally or not, it's still going to fuck with your head. And so much better to just mute these people. Just be like, yeah, no, bye, done. I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. You're a worthless person. Bye. Like, what do you think about that?
I'll tell you the craziest example I saw very recently of exactly this. This is what happens, by the way, if you just let people willy-nilly contact you on Twitter. Richard made some sort of a tweet about the Queen passing away, right? And he made some sort of comment that was about the military or something.
But he did bring up Jimmy Savile and all that. I was like,
no, this is separate to that. He just made a comment about the Queen and the military. And a fucking guy that doesn't even know Richard, but must have listened to Richard's content from years ago, goes, oh, what would your friend Chris Marsden, the Royal Navy Marine, have thought about your comments on the military now? And Richard even just said, like, well, I don't know, why don't you just imagine the thoughts of a guy who's been dead for 20 years that you never knew? That's what being on the internet's like. That's what being on the... that, by the way, if you can't see, by the way, guys, that is pure unhinged mental illness. Like, that's absurd. That's like if I didn't even know you, but somehow I could look up your family tree and go, oh, yeah, what would your great-aunt Wilhelmina have thought of that? The way that you had squandered your... Like, what the fuck are you? Who are you? So I think that sucks anyway. The real reason I can nail it, by the way, so I often think about, I always say this, it's partly because I'm autistic, so I had to, in real life, by the way, figure out what's going on, what is subtext, what are people meaning by something, what do facial gestures mean. I've told people these stories, I've read books on all topics and everything, but the problem is this, on the internet you don't get any of that, right? But there's an even worse part. I always say that when the internet ticked over from fun to shit, was in the old days, Twitter was who you follow. That's your little thing. You never look at the news, but you never let them give the algo give you it. You just look at who who you follow. So what happens is if you like StarCraft, you follow tournaments and you follow Artosis. So no matter what Artosis says about StarCraft, you're never going to fundamentally be like, I hate Artosis, because it's like you just disagree with his opinion. But in the modern day, Twitter it's not, but they pretend it's this, is a megaphone to the whole world. Well, guess what? There's not a single topic the whole world can agree on. And when you do that with anything that's like slightly controversial, all that happens is people who don't know you and want to argue with that comment, that take, come to you and abuse you. And then idiots go like this. So essentially, the in public part is the problem, Semmler. It's not a convo. One-on-one, we would speak to each other in a very different way. But in public, when I know everyone's watching me speak to you, that's why everything's a dunk. Everything's combative. Everything's argument. Because the sad thing is, mate, this is how I know it's the medium. Because it does it to me and my friends. Do you know how many times on Twitter I've had like a little argument with like Yanko or Dom from League of Legends or even Monty, because they've said something and they've tried to zing me, but it was a little bit too snippy. But in real life, I'd know if they were laughing off. I don't know that though. So I'm like, oh, he's fucking trying to show me up. Like, I don't know anything. Well, then fuck you. What about when you coach face? You just it brings out the shit of everyone. It makes everyone worse.
Like they figured that out. That's the thing. It's not ridiculous to say that once upon a time that's the way it was at the beginning. Is because I think that's before they figured out, the algorithms, that it was actually conflict that keeps people on the platforms and keeps people engaged.
Right.
And so this is pre them tuning everything so that there's a maximal chance for combustion.
I mean, it's why I trend, right? Conflict. Here's the question, Semmler. Obviously I block people, so that does make the number go down. But I've told you this before. On Twitter and YouTube, if I don't do anything, don't block anyone, I just get to a certain number and it'll never go above that. I'll even see new followers getting added and I'm like, where are they getting deleted from? And they just never go up. So that means essentially they're limiting me, they're rating me. But this will be to your point, Semmler. So logically, you'll think they're restricting me in some way, right? Not letting me grow too big. But I'll trend every time I say something controversial.
Sure.
So it's to your point. If I'm serving them though, creating division and reading an opinion everyone's going to go mental about, they'll make me trend. The joke is I can trend above like a fucking sports game, but I can't have my own community and make that really big of just cool people. Man, you see the distinction I'm making? It's mad, isn't it?
No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't serve the purpose. I know of multiple YouTube channels that are just locked, and they create banger content. They've been at it for years, consistent, regular schedule, lots of viewers on the channel, and really solid takes on a lot of topics. I haven't seen in like 3 years of following certain channels, I haven't seen their follower count change. Not once, not up or down. It's just locked. It just stays the same. You're just like, okay, fair, fine. That's the space that you're operating in now in this weird thing that the social media platforms have become. But I don't know if that's what we want to talk about, because we're here to talk about Counter-Strike.
There's a good segue though. Do you want me to give you it? So obviously that felt like it was petty grievances. It wasn't. That was some.
It wasn't. This was actually just us catching up.
Yeah, but this does actually segue into petty grievances, because remember, we're talking about how when you communicate with people you might even know and actually have a relationship with, but you only communicate through text, and in public it can make you all seem like dickheads and we're going at each other. So what do you know? The casting drama that I thought we put together, bed, because spoiler, this show did that green room edition after PGL Stockholm where we revealed all the secrets about the Bardolph move and what really happened, and that you had nothing to do with it, and that it was PGL and all the problems with PGL. We revealed it all in that episode. But somehow that drama came back again because someone did some Reddit thread, like set it up if you want, but someone did a Reddit thread about Bardolph, right? And then Bardolph and Moses suddenly are just going at each other like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's what actually shocked me is just how hard that got, how heated that got.
I woke up and just saw that Moses comment where it was like, don't invoke my mother, you piece of shit. I was like,
exactly. I was just like, holy shit. Okay, then I guess there's no middle ground anymore here, guys. Like that's
if you don't know, guys, Moses is normally like the peacemaker, not the guy who's the coach of the Imperial, but he's normally the peacemaker, like the one who's like is a glue that holds the group together.
Yeah, no, I was shocked by that. That was definitely. I mean, the thing is, like, there was going to be a thread like that eventually popped up, and I mean, to be fair, I mean, Bardolph is entitled to answer it as well. I don't get flack about
especially
like,
if he
why
thinks
Bardolph,
there's things that are wrong and people are saying things that he considers incorrect. Course.
Yeah, so I mean that whole thing, I was just surprised at how quickly it just blew up between Moses and Bardolph, and how that really popped off, and then everybody starts weighing in again, and then there was also that podcast that Yanko, Sponge, and Moses are doing. You watched
the last part,
I watched the last part of that.
The last part they addressed the same thing. They have their own take. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like my view on this whole situation though is a little bit different from what everybody seems to be agreeing on, in that or at least I agree with Yanko initially, and then because he had a rant on the topic, right? Where essentially he says, that the whole show is about the players and the whole show is about the tournaments, and that we are there just to facilitate the show. And I'm like, on board with this, totally agree. It's been my philosophy since day one. You shut the fuck up and you do whatever the producer says to do, because it's his show. Ultimately, you're paid to be there to facilitate their show. And so totally on board with that in terms of Yanko. But then the way that wrapped around, where I was like, I have to get off this ship now, was when essentially he at the end of it. So if you're not familiar with this story, right? Sato gets yeeted out of Europe because his passport wasn't it ran out. It expired. So had we flown directly from Romania, no, I don't even think had we flown from Romania directly to, I think he was just fucked. Like as soon as it was good for him to get into Europe, but then because we had to leave Europe and come back in again, he got screwed. And so he gets yeeted out, and that fucks the whole schedule up for the major. Semifinals are getting casted, and all of a sudden, instead of it being Sato and Moses casting the semifinal, PGL pivot and put Bardolph and DDK into that semifinal. And so this ruffles some feathers, and this causes Moses to get into a bit of a he gets frustrated.
I think Moses was going to have no
like
games, and he was just going to be on desk or something instead, right?
He was going to be on desk, and apparently he was going to push play off of some of the desk spots.
That part apparently isn't true. I'll look that up. But yeah, keep going.
I mean, I don't know about that part either.
No, don't worry about that. Keep going.
I haven't heard that, but the reality is that then some way I've heard several different accounts on how it all happens. But Moses winds up back in the semifinal, this time casting with Anders. And so DDK and Bardolph get put onto a quarterfinal, and that's it. And they get the show match, I think, afterwards. Yep. And Anders and Moses are casting the semifinal. This is where I have to get off of the boat, because at that point, it's like, okay, you can have all the reasons in the world to justify thinking that Moses deserves that semifinal over Bardolph and DDK. But the reality is that Bardolph and DDK are a duo. They have years of experience in CS, even if they haven't casted CS recently, as much as anybody else. I mean, they're still like one of the founding duos of Counter-Strike is DDK and Bardolph. They have a fan base, so it's not like they don't have the chops to be there in that semifinal. They do, and also, who are you to call it? Because the producers are the ones it's the producer show. It's PGL's show. So if they decide to say, well, I'm sorry, Moses, this is the way that it broke down. You're going to go into a quarterfinal. You're going to do this. DDK and Bardolph, you get the semifinal. That's the end of the conversation. If you're pissed off about it, it sucks, and it really is a shitty situation. Don't get me wrong. I feel for you, but at that point, that's the end of the conversation. You suck it up and you move on, and you hope the next time you'll get your semifinal in the next major, because that's the way. It's the producers call the shots, and it's the producer's show at the end of the day. Now, there's all sorts of ways apparently that it went down. I can't get a straight story in terms of like what actually happened that night.
I mean, we can address this. Bardolph is accurate. One of the weird things about this topic, because Bardolph says it in his Reddit post, and he's right. This is why I'm amazed at the time, though. He said the old boys club, which in theory would have to be me, you, Richard. Like, it wasn't even some of the newer school peoples. Like, right, here's what happened, basically, as Bardolph said. When this whole meeting went down, where basically, like Moses explains it himself, that what happened was, PGL came to him, we're like, look, since Sato isn't here, we're taking you off the games, Bardolph and that get the semi, and then you're going to go into like a desk or whatever. Moses even says, obviously I wasn't happy about it, and I said, I'm not happy. But at the end of the day, I said, I want to work the event, short event. Just tell me what to do, and I'll still try to do the best I can. By the way, professional attitude. But then what's happened is, because he was upset about that, I don't know if he himself stimulated the convo, or if someone's gone, why are you upset? What's happened? But basically, the rest of the talent, like the scenario that Yanko's referring to, they've sort of gotten together and decided this is an outrage. Together, if we collectively, come together, we'll just sort of say we're not going to stand for this, and let's get you on those games, Moses. And as you say, they decided they were the ones running the event. Like, I've decided, Moses, you should have the event over Bardolph. So let's go as a group and force the PGL to do this, right? By the way, I'll even say that is what PGL behind the scenes said when we initially came to, not me, but the casting group.
The ones they initially
even said,
were Richard, Yanko, Maniac, and Blay. And
yeah,
Moses.
okay. So basically, the premise was that PGL's vibe even was like, oh, so we're being held hostage by the casters. Like, well, yeah, in a way. Yeah, in a way you are. Yeah. But here's the problem. As Bardolph said, me and Semmler weren't there. That's why people invoking Semmler.
We were having dinner at my place.
Everyone on Reddit, you are the dumbest motherfuckers of all time. The joke is, even Bardolph, the victim, actually acknowledges we had a perfect alibi. Me and Semmler were sat having like fucking steaks in his house.
Like, what is this, a game of Clue?
It's mad, isn't it?
You and I had an alibi. We were in the library while this is all happening in the dining room.
Yeah. And the joke is, like, we weren't there at all. So we only found out by listening to each person's story. And by the way, as you can imagine, this shit's like Rashomon. Everyone has a fucking slightly different story, and not everyone perfectly aligns. But the central theme was, they just thought it was an outrage that Moses didn't get the match. Whereas the problem with Bardolph and DDK, you've sort of alluded to it, is their problem is, if they were the classic duo from 3 years ago, no problem. But because they hadn't done much, because they were only doing Flashpoint with me, and there is no Face It anymore, and obviously don't get hired by ESL, and Bardolph was doing Apex Legends, and DDK, we all know, was balls deep in Valorant and probably had to bone up on CS to come back. That sentiment also, I think, built resentment in the other casters who had done stuff during the online era. So I think that was what was blowing below the surface. I think that's why this was like take control. But I agree with you, basically. If you bring it all back, look, I do think some of the ways Bardolph behaved were a bit fucked up. I definitely don't like the idea, like, implicated me and you, for example. Like, why is that, mate? Like, what the fuck have I ever done? Like, I wasn't even
dirty
involved.
laundry on broadcast that really
that's also
people the wrong way.
Don't say it on don't say it on broadcast. Put it in the WhatsApp group if you want. Come to us in person. By the way, there's another thing. You can always come to me in person, talk to me, say whatever you want, even if you're upset. Don't go and call people out especially when you know what you're talking about and imply it's your boys because it wasn't. And then I'll say this.
Keeps going like further and further though, because when I spoke to Bardolph about this, the element that I got of it was that he thought that it was everybody. That everybody was in on it. All the CS talent had gotten together. And so that's why he didn't go and talk to anybody afterwards, because he was essentially told the decision is done. Everybody agrees. There's no going back on it. So you're on your own if you just lump it.
Well, this leads into another
his
point.
Perspective, he's like, oh, fuck, everybody hates me here or something. Like everybody's got a bone to pick with me here. So I can't talk to any of them. I'm on my own. I'm out. And so I can get how the events happen from his perspective as well.
I've got a topic like that we can circle back to in a sec. But one thing I'll just touch on there is like, one, that is essentially why I mean earlier that I get the vibe. He thought, I really think, right, Bardolph came into the event with a weird paranoid mindset. Like, we didn't think this at all, by the way. We were all cool with him getting hired. He is a legendary cast. He's done major finals. But I do think he got the vibe that we were all thinking, he shouldn't be here. What the fuck is it?
Well, keep in mind, there's also something else that gets overlooked here. This was during Rona times. And remember, some people are affected by Rona more than others, i.e. Rona fear, right?
Right, sure.
And so there were even at the event, during the whole event, during Romania and all that, there was a certain group who were much more comfortable with going down to the bar and having a drink after work, as we usually do. And there was a certain group who would just go back to their hotel rooms and not mingle and like wear the mask and do everything, blah, 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 right? Like there were different groups there too, in terms of like how they handled Rona. So that's another factor that really led to this to additional pressure being put into the situation. It's like a big pressure cooker. Like there's just more and more things getting chucked in.
That's why, though, I do think that they came in like with a weird vibe to like the rest of the talent, because it was the same with DDK, right? Look, but you guys don't know this. It's not a drama that's worth going into. But like when I worked at Flashpoint, there was a minor drama with like hiring DDK in the sense that he was transitioning to Valorant and was he still in CS? And then also there was a bunch of other stuff behind the scenes. And the problem basically is this. My relationship with DDK was from when he was a Quake player. So I'm interviewing him, I'm a friend of his. Then later on, it's like I'm a big talent in the scene. He's a slightly smaller one. I'm giving him tips, like, trying to help him like negotiate with Faceit, get a bit of... So I was always in the position where I'm adding so much value to it. It's all awesome. But then I got into a scenario, so I don't do business with friends, where you can have an argument over something and then it infers something like, so you think this of me, or you're trying to pull this on me. So basically that had already fractured. But even then, like, I actually remember at the event, Semmler, for real, there was one night where everyone was going to some like after party or something. I remember just seeing DDK like sat in the lobby, and I remember just saying to him like, I just thought to myself, you know what, even though I'm not really getting along with him, fuck it, like we did all used to be his mates at events. So I remember going over and going, just come with us to this party, mate. Whatever you sat here doing now, just forget it, come and have some beers and just everything will be like the oldest. And even then they just had the vibe of like, no, it's like, and they were just like closed off, mate. So unfortunately, I also think that was almost like, as you say, it was a pressure cooker and one thing was going to go wrong and blow it up. But to tie it back in, here's what I wanted to talk about though, is this actually brings up a bigger point. Because the other part that I'm actually really glad Bardolph came out with this news, by the way. As you say, he's totally within his rights to explain and set the record correct if he thinks someone's lied. And remember, like Rashomon, he'll have a totally different perspective on what happened and who said what. And logically, we're in a different perspective. Like, we're even hearing second-hand accounts, right? So the key thing I'll say is this. I never thought this through. Because when I was there, remember what I just said? I came out of this dinner with you, saw everything on WhatsApp, then I started calling people, then I went to the event for the beer that night, and then the next day I was talking to people at the event, and I'm getting each person's story separately, and everyone's story actually wouldn't align with Bardolph's, because what they were all saying was like the same thing, like, yeah, I agree with this, actually, Moses should get the event, that is a bit fucked up, wow, I can't believe Bardolph was like acting out, like this is before he did the thing on camera, people, like, you can't believe he's getting a bit wild, like, wow, who does he think he is? So everyone kept saying this, right, in general, and I started thinking like, so it is just Bardolph doing everything. He's completely lied about everything. And here's what I noticed. In his actual statement, he says essentially almost everyone or loads of other talent came to him like one-on-one privately. And it sounds from what he says like they came to him sort of like, look, I don't have a problem with you, and it isn't me pulling this. It's the others, or it's Moses. And it sounds like literally each person had that genius idea to just betray Moses in this case and one-on-one go. So that at the end, because obviously Moses isn't going, he looks like the only one that did it, right? So if you're bad off, by the way, that would even be totally logical. You would draw that conclusion. Now, the problem there is, I have spoken to some of the people since to check if they are, checks notes, rats. And some of them claim, well, I didn't quite say what he's implying. I was just more like, I feel sorry for you, and like it's the way it is. And then maybe he just took the rest. So again, I wasn't in the room. I can't comment on that. But this is what I want to ask you about, is this, Semmler. If you notice, I did a little tweet thread about this. This pissed me off, because what it made me realize is that is actually what working in talent is like. That is what the people who work talent are like, because it's all about social skills and networking. And it's all about your relationship with the TO and your relationship with other talent. Do they want you to work in the event? Will they go to bat for you? You know what? In a certain scenario, do they know who your enemy is so they could play you off against it? Things like that. The problem I have is this. I get the vibe, Semmler, for real. Some of these people are my friends, that they're doing this all the time. So I'm hearing one set of stories for me, and then you're hearing a different set of stories for you, and they're maybe even agreeing with everyone. And it's like, whose friend are you, mate? Because by the way, if you're everyone's friend, you're no one's friend. You have to sometimes take sides.
There's definitely...
That was a bit disturbing as a thought.
I've talked about this about a bunch actually with like friends and family, and over a beer, where you're just like, man, you just start making observations, and after all these years, it's definitely like something that older veterans that I've talked with in the space as well have kind of like confirmed, I guess, this sense that it is very difficult as casters sometimes, because the people that you spend all your time with and the people who are your friends are also the people with whom you compete for your job.
Direct rivals,
right? And so if you just stop and think about that for a second, guys, because everybody, unless you have an extremely stable friend group and family with whom you can constantly have contact with, it's a very difficult sort of scenario to be in. It's not like a team where you earn your spot, and so you know the deal, right? You earn your spot and all that. It's like it's very much just like your casters. It's a popularity thing. You need to have Reddit's approval at all times, because that's who the TOs are looking for, to see who's good and who's not, and who's popular and who's not, and all that. And then you need to get along with everybody at the same time, but you're also competing with those very same guys. And so like majors are just, there's always drama at the majors. If the community finds out about it or not, there's always drama at the majors, because all of a sudden you're putting all of these guys with whom there's a lot of tension, and sometimes it's cross company tension as well. Because keep in mind, it's like ESL versus Faceit versus E-League versus StarLadder versus DreamHack. Like for years, there's all these rivalries, and that sort of scenario where it's like, that was another, actually just quick circle back here. I'm going to pull it Saki, but sorry. That was another thing where I was like, well, Moses, what do you expect? It's like Bardolph works with PGL on everything. He's working on their Apex thing now. He's their boy. So if we follow that same logic that we've always used in the past, where it's like you have a certain pair of commentators, it's their tournament organizer, their odds are they're going to get preferential treatment because it's their guys. The way that Sponge and Machine, you can count on them getting the finals for everything ESL because they're the ESL commentators. DDK and Bardolph for Faceit. Nobody's going to say would be surprised if they get the finals of everything because they're those commentators for that TO. So when the whole PGL thing happened, I'm just like, well, freaking Bardolph and Silvio go back years. Of course they're going to get a little bit of a nod, a little bit of a nudge in this sort of scenario. Not only, not because, and that's really just adding to it, because like I said before, Bardolph and DDK, they have a long history in terms of Counter-Strike Global Offensive. They're one of the original casting duos. There's a long pedigree there. So I mean, just based on that alone, despite, what happened in the short term there, Valorant or whatever, just that on that alone, they're an established duo that could cast that semi. But then you just add the fact that, it's like they have that direct connection to PGL as well, perhaps more than any of us do. Go figure that they get that semifinal, right? So that was just another little thing there.
One thing Yanko did correctly call out, though, is remember, you can't just judge statements in isolation. You have to ask who is making the statement. The idea James Bardolph is going to go out there and be like, how dare the tournament organizer decide to pick someone else? And not only that, pick someone that I don't think, that's, if people don't know, of all the talent, I've done Flashpoint, right? That's it. The rest of them were just talent. Bardolph was the guy not hiring people for events that they should work out over there. So that's the problem with that one. It's like, that was all, I think that also was part of the resentment as well. It's like, wait a minute, you're the guy who like didn't hire all of us for the fucking tournaments, including, by the way, this is why I didn't like it, mate. He didn't even hire me for an event in my fucking home country that was a major, the only major in the history of I've followed every single major in Counter-Strike history, going back to the year fucking 2001 when the first major happened in Dallas, Texas, in like December of 2001, won by NIP over X3. So they think they finally have a Counter-Strike World Championship in my home country. And by the way, I'm the motherfucking most appearances ever for an analyst, and you don't invite me. You do understand, fans, that's not a preference. You are basically going, hey, Thorin. That's what you've just done to me. So then, if you then later go, why haven't I got a semi-final? It's like, mate, you're lucky you fucking. So then the other thing I would say is this. There's one last thing to say, which is I want to circle it back to the beginning. I agree with your first point, though. And this is where people might be shocked because the principle is what I agree in, right? If PGL's event sucks, is someone going to blame Bardolph? No, they're going to blame PGL. They're going to blame Silverview. If the sound and all that shit fucks up, who are they going to blame? The person talking on the mic? No, they're going to blame the producer. They're going to blame the person who set the mics up. So as a result, if the credit and the blame are going to fall on one person, that's called liability, by the way. So the person who has the liability, you'll notice it's a theme in my life. They should make the choice. You don't make the choice for other people when they carry the can. So even though I agree in sentiment, Moses should cast it, I don't think Bardolph should. I prefer Moses over Sentiment. That's all great and well and good, but I'm not Silverview. I don't run PGL. Exactly. So I agree, Semmler. I actually think what Moses said first was the most professional part. It's like, okay, I disagree completely, obviously, but I'm glad to be at the major. Thanks for hiring me anyway. I'll do what I can. Because by the way, people don't know this, Semmler. People think because of my persona, I've just got a massive ego. Go look. I've done like a bunch of star ladders and stuff in it where they didn't even put me on the final. You never see me publicly complain about that. I just did my shitty quarterfinal, got my money, watched the final, said great job to the guys who did, and thought, you know what? I'm not as happy, so maybe I'll prefer another event over Starladder, but this is what Starladder's choice is. And you know what? As I just said, I'll loop it back in again. They'll carry the can for this. If I really would have done a better job, then the final flame them. If they do a bad job with the final, it ain't my fault. It's on them. But they'll also get credit if it's good. So I do think that's a bit about the industry where, look, obviously all this talent are all scared. They're not going to get hired. And there's all this weird insecurity, but that was a bit whack, I agree. Because if I was PGL, that is how I'd feel. It's like, mate, I'm already getting flamed for everyone with a major. I can't even pick who the fucking casters are. Why am I paying you all? Like I am the one who pays, right?
that is the thing ultimately, and it was such a clusterfuck at the end there. But that was the real thing where I was like, yeah, I'm very much along that line where I was like, I'm on board with all of this, and then all of a sudden it just shit went haywire, and that's where it starts getting completely out of hand, and you're just like, what the fuck is this bullshit? How did we even get here, and how is this allowed to happen? So.
Can you even imagine, dude?
Like the thing is, it was just the Bardolph thing, and then obviously it's just our little, our little bubble on Reddit and our little bubble on like Twitter or whatever. But like the major as a whole was still such a massive success.
Oh,
we can't make a mountain out of a molehill either. No. This is our little Twitter drama bullshit. Our little caster thing. But like still, the event as a whole, still a wild success. Valve consider it a wild success. PGL consider it a wild success. So at that point, then we have to still say, okay, good, we nailed it in terms of like at least we were able to get a show out there and do our jobs. But just for it's just every major there has to be something.
Here's the joke I was going to make, though.
To be fair, though, Dunk, I don't know, because like PGL Antwerp just happened, we weren't there, so I don't know. Maybe that was just the smoothest major in history, and that nothing, nothing went down.
I know what was going. I'll DM you later. I know what's going.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, okay. People were wild on that one. There was pretty sure there was all sorts of.
Okay.
Anyway, whatever. I did like some vaudeville version for you there. I didn't go to I didn't name any names, but you sort of get the vibe. People might be wilding. All I'm saying is,
Okay.
Anyway, what I would say is this. All you need to think of is this. This is also why I definitely agree with PGL. Can you even imagine, Semmler, if when I was running Flashpoint and I got to pick the talent came to me one day and they were like, yeah, Thorin, here's the thing. We actually fundamentally disagree with who you're hiring and who's on the matches. And so we're going to make this schedule for you. He's going to do the Can you even imagine what I would have done because if you put it this way, PGL was fairly polite compared to that. I would have absolutely torn these motherfuckers up. They would have been out on their ass and I probably fucking filmed it as I'm doing. Like, it'd be mental, mate. I would absolutely lose my shit on a level you can't even imagine. So in that sense, I can relate to PGL. It's like, fair enough. You are the one carrying the can.
I think this is a good play. So we've had those that was the petty grievances for the week. I mean, we're starting off strong here. We spent about like 45 minutes now just catching up on some of the bants and then getting into the first bit. But now all right, we can go ahead, move on a little bit here. One of the first things, this is a small thing, but it's not. I mean, small thing. It kind of sets us up again for some more bants if we want. But there was one little bit of news that kind of like flew under the radar. But it's that Fragadelphia is going down. And I just wanted to touch on this, but Evil Genius is like, what I wanted to get your thoughts on this, because like, am I thinking that there's a conflict of interest here when you send two teams that you own to the same tournament? Because it's just like, I don't know, that feels a little bit weird if you literally have like they're two teams, all things equal, right? And they're going to compete in the same tournament. I mean, are you not thinking like if they run into each other in the tournament, how's that going to play out? Is that going to be weird? Does one team just throw in the towel? Is it prearranged that like one team, in jiu-jitsu, they call it a closeout, where they just, they won't even have the match. They'll just, they both kind of like.
That used to happen actually occasionally in Korean StarCraft. Sometimes if three Koreans went to an event and this is how they would do it, because they were doing it on purpose strategically in that case. Either they're in the same team and they think he's the star of the team, so they let him have the win and just don't even play the match. You give him the walkover. Or the other one was if they just felt threatened that a foreigner would win the tournament, like Stefano's going off, they would sometimes for real be like, look, out of the two of us, like you're actually the better matchup against him, so I'll let you win or just have the walkover because Korea has to win. Like, it doesn't matter whether I win, I want Korea to win over the foreigner. So sometimes they would do that. Now, the reason I bring this up is it's actually mainly from Korean esports and Chinese esports, but behind the scenes, not a lot of this has come out in public. There have been tons of cases like this, Semmler, where directly teams either like used the org like that. This is the better team, so let them win the match so they can go to the final. So kind of like, by the way, like Formula One, the classic one where this used to happen, like fucking, I can't remember his name, Barrichello or whatever. That guy used to have to like slow down to let Schumacher win the race. Like, so he's like, I need the construction points. Like, yeah, they would do that. That's a real thing. So that, as you're saying, that's not like it's never happened in history. That's the thing that could happen. And spoiler, I sort of got in trouble for this because people translated it and told Koreans about it. But basically, statute of limitations has passed out. This is from 2014. You won't believe this, Semmler. I could go and one day I will do a video about this. I'll have to say I allege or I speculate or I think. But just look at it. I think that in the spring season of OGN, the League of Legends top tournament in Korea in 2014, that the world champions, SK Telecom with Faker, intentionally had their sister team throw a game to them so that they could go through to the playoffs. Now, the reason I say this is because the order of the group went like this, Semmler. It was like the underdog, their sister team had won like 2 games or whatever. It was like in the position where they could get out the group as well, right? But they didn't have to win the last game. But then the problem is the world champions, SKT, weren't good at the time. They'd fallen off. And they lost to an underdog team, a nobody. So the only way they could make the playoffs is if they then beat their sister team. Now that's fine because normally they were better, but at the time they weren't. And magically the sister team just lost in the most ridiculous fashion I've ever seen. And like the exact like 2-0, whatever you needed to get out. Almost like someone just said like, the fix is in. You know which way your bread's buttered. Come on. Exactly. And it's like you got some legit results at the beginning. At the end, I'm like, so the reason I bring this up is, guys, if the world champions in League of Legends in Korea will do that, what is someone going to do in a dog shit org like EG that can't get a win anywhere and they're in some local like tier 4 tournament now? Because by the way, there's not even a question, Semmler. It is a direct conflict of interest to even play in the tournament. You're mistaking it. You're being too fair. You're thinking, what if they play each other? Fuck that. What if one of them has to lose to get the other one out? What if one has into someone else? Think about that. What if we're both in like a group scenario and I need one more win and so you lose, so it's like tied. You can do that. Secondly, you could have scenarios. Oh, there's a million things you could do. Exactly. Also, if I'm in a scenario where I won like 3 games in a 4-game group stage, and then I know that if I finish first, me and you do play in the quarters, and maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want both EG squads to go forward. So I intentionally come second in the group, so we go on the opposite sides of the bracket. You can see there's a million ways this could be fucked. So I can't even believe this tournament is happening. Because here's the thing, that Korean example I gave earlier, there's nothing I can do about that. That's Korea and Korean culture. And their logic would be, Semmler, it's fucked up. But their logic, because they're an honor-based culture where it's all about your public face, they would actually, this is why I got in trouble, they would be like, how dare you suggest we would ever even cheat? And it's like, sorry Koreans, I do believe Koreans can lie and cheat, you fucking idiot. That doesn't mean all of you do, but I think it's possible. It's like when people go, believe women, it's like, you cretin, you think a woman can't lie ever, you fucking moron. So same scenario, I don't care. They absolutely might not do anything. They might just go to the tournament and play. I'm sure these squads, by the way, haven't thought about this at all. They're all just going, oh, cool, we both get to go to the tournament. But the problem is, when you even allow the possibility, it's going to create scenarios where people will abuse that. People will use loopholes. People will fuck around. So it shouldn't happen. Essentially, the rule should be for any like professional level. That's the key thing. You do for amateur tournaments, whatever. For professional level tournaments, you should only be allowed one team per org. That's it. What's the problem with that? It's why basically the whole EG thing for CSGO is a joke anyway. Now you have 3 teams. Well, how does that work? You know, it's not like you even split them up properly. They're essentially all in the same pool. And the joke is the main team's so bad, they're coming down to the level where the other fucker... Like the party astronauts one dude is slightly better than the main team. So now you are both in the same tier, you idiots. That you've made a direct conflict of interest.
Like all 3 of your teams are going to go to all the tournaments at the same time. Is this how it's supposed to work out in your mind?
Sort of, right? Because here's the thing.
Like it. I mean, if they think that they can send 2 of their teams to Fragadelphia at the same time, like
the only teams that could do this, in my opinion, are actually the biggest teams. Like if you're FaZe and Na'Vi, you only go to the tier 1, top of tier 1 anyway, and you never get knocked out. So like you could have your guy playing tier 3, and he's never going to meet you in a tournament. You're not playing that same competition. But you can't be doing this where you're all in the same mix, so you just go to the same tournaments. Yeah, that's fuckery, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I just keep an eye on it. We'll see how this Fragadelphia plays out. Obviously, it's just something worth mentioning because evil geniuses really do make you wonder.
Also, I'll just say it like this. At least when like Astralis or Nip fuck around and get all corrupt, they're trying to win a major. AG's so bad now, they're trying to like fucking fuck around and win Fragadelphia. Like, what the fuck is this? I know.
Yeah, no lie.
That is like you're about 5 minutes away from like, I suck your dick for pound now. It's like, fucking hell. How decrepit and wretched are you right now? They're basically like fucking that. You might not know the reference, Sammy, but there was a basketball player back in the day called Delonte West, and he actually played on like the Cavs with LeBron. But the problem is there was this rumor that he'd fucked LeBron's mom. And essentially, I speculate it's possible it could be true because essentially, like when this came out publicly, it was in the middle of a playoff series, and LeBron like got in a huff and just played bad for the rest of the series, then left the Cavaliers organization. So part of me thinks, you know, all I'm saying is, you know, he didn't exactly do a good job walking it off. So basically, that guy though was only good because he was on LeBron's team. Then later on, I'm not joking, he had one of those crazy falls from fame where he wasn't just like a bad pro. He's literally homeless. And the last few years have just been people finding him on the street in like LA or whatever and just filming videos of him just like high on lean or some shit, you know. Like, it's really depressing. It's like one of those ones like, Jesus. That's like what EG is now. You'll walk past like, oh, yeah, they're $5. Yeah, hope you get better, sir. Like, thank you. I hope you remember 2019 when we won Starladder. Like, is that you, evil genius? What the bro, fuck, you're looking bad. You're looking, ooh. And then that fucking Nicole Lapointe comes in like, but we have taken the L, learnings, we've learned, and we are going to apply our synergistic team-based family approach to becoming the progressive, new, diverse, and inclusive team that's going to make this game a thing of beauty. You know, like, what are you talking about? I know, get out my brain. Stop trying to like mentally break me in a like side war or something with your fucking, these aren't even words. They're just like fucking like, they're like fucking stealth bombs just supposed to go in my brain and detonate with like concepts that don't even make sense.
But the chairman approves of her speech. Don't worry. She's definitely going to move up in the party structure.
What's that? Why did you stop clapping for Nicole Lapointe's speech, comrade? You did not like her comments about diversity?
Evil geniuses for 10,000 years.
And also, spoiler, the name of the org's evil geniuses.
I mean, come on.
Just call it evil dickheads at this point in time. You're not geniuses, are you? You're fucking garbage. You can't play Game of Thrones at all. You're getting bodied all over the fucking place, aren't you? You all think you're Littlefinger. You're not. You're not. It's fucking garbage, mate.
All right, next up on the news. I mean,
we got that one. We can only talk about
it so much. Next up though, actually interesting bit, you know, so the last couple of episodes we've been kind of speculating about the major and what it's going to look like. The next one, that is not the Brazilian one that's happening at the end of this year, but the 2023 calendar was opened up by Valve. Unless you know how that works, basically Valve say, okay, we're opening up bids for the event. There's 2 majors in the year, and we want to have you guys to go ahead and give us your pitches. And so all the TOs kind of get together, they get a deck together, they send that over to Valve, and they make their pitch, and they hope they get the major. And it turns out that Blast will actually have one of the majors after all, because rumor has it that they are going to be hosting the first of the 2023 majors, and also that it could be happening in France, and also that it could be happening in Paris.
Here's the problem. There's so many angles on this that we can give. I just want to start here.
Okay.
This is going to look like I am the god troll and that I'm actually on some Andy Kaufman, like method actor. This isn't really me. It's the whole act that I've created performance. Because I just did like about 4 days ago a video like, why I'll probably never work a major again. And in it, I even say, I mean, it's not impossible. Like, for example, if Blast got a major, but then again, it might be in the Middle East. So if Blast got a major, it wasn't in the Middle East. Like, if they're in Copenhagen, maybe I could sort of work. It looks like I was trying to tee that up. So it's like, come along, Blast. You've got your... But I wasn't doing that at all. I genuinely had no idea this could go to Blast. I didn't know anything about that was actually just a pure coincidence.
No,
I know
dude,
it looks
the
really
obvious
sketchy,
joke. The obvious joke is they are going to host a major in the Middle East after all. This is in Paris, Saint Denis.
Yeah. That was something I wanted to bring up though, Semmler. I'm actually being serious for a second. Right? There's one thing that people are going to ignore. But since I did it about Brazil, let me just briefly say it about Paris. You know what I've said about Brazil? A real concern, I'm not trolling, is that there is an incredible amount of crime in Brazil, and especially on like tourists, and if you walk in the wrong area, if you go to the wrong stoplight, that is real. People get murdered, people get carjacked, people get held up and stabbed with knives. Well, here's the problem. You're all going to think, Paris, the city of love. Oh my God. Oh, everything is so beautiful. No, here's what you don't know. There are certain bridges you don't walk under. It's like LA, mate. There are certain areas you do not go after 10 p.m. And the main problem I have is this. That is why I think it's irresponsible when TOs don't tell people about this when they're attending. The problem with Paris is like Rio. It isn't that you have to go like by subway 30 minutes to get to the bad area. The bad areas are just dotted around the main area of the city.
Yeah, exactly.
You can just get wrecked in the main area. You might be walking like I say, you think it's 1930. Like I'm walking with my bride. Oh, we had a beautiful meal and some wine. Now shall we take in the stars? And then some motherfucker flip like, tell you what, I'll take all that shit, bit. So I had to make him sound like American. I can't do the other accents, guys. But yeah, no, mate, there's a little bit behind that sauce.
Dude, no, just look at what happened with the Premier League finals where there was just riots in the venue.
People
and then fancy that all of the CCTV footage and all the footage got deleted, and the cops never actually made any requests for it. And then they blamed the fans when it was happening in Saint Denis, where last I heard in the article that I read recently, 400,000 illegal immigrants are in that one suburb of Paris.
All I'm saying is this: Liverpool FC fans didn't hang themselves.
No, they didn't. They didn't. It was, dude, dark.
You get the reference, whatever.
I mean, it's just, Paris. You're gonna go host your event in Paris. I mean, dude, Paris is such a shithole now. It's outrageous. So what are you going to do? And especially like if Blast were going to get a major, I thought it would be Copenhagen. Like, why are you not having a home run and hosting it in the Royal Arena in Copenhagen?
We can get into that. Oh,
yeah, well, I mean,
there's two factors here. One, quickly, when I was last in Paris, I'll tell you a real story that will highlight. This is only a couple of years back. It was right before the pandemic. I went to Paris to like a cool weekend, right? And when I was there, this is not a joke, I was walking around trying to take in the scenery and all the old buildings and stuff. And when I walked past this churchyard, the biggest rat I have ever seen ran out across me. And it was one of those ones, dude, that's really scary where they're not even scared of humans. They just run past you.
Almost, you give your money.
Dude, this guy ran past, looked at me and went, Breeze and Cirque make 30K a month. Then just went back off. Well, no, you get the joke. That's just by the numbers in it. I know. It's Samoa, isn't it? Obviously, Samoa. I know. He's not even that bad anymore. I know he's all right, isn't he? But no, you're making actually a very valid point, though. We've got to bring it back to that point, because I made this point on another show that'll be coming out on this channel. So actually, when this one comes out, maybe it'll already be on the channel Snake and Banter. I won't tell you who's on it. But basically, I make this point there, Semmler. No one else made this point. I wonder if the reason they didn't just pitch Copenhagen, because by the way, Copenhagen, Denmark should have a major, totally legit spot. They have their studio, they have the Royal Arena. I think the reason they might not have done it is this. The problem is, think of the last time they were in that arena when all the crowd was just cheating and making stuff. So if you go...
Really, do you think that's it?
I think that could be part of it.
I mean, even in terms of cost. Well, the reason why I say Paris is a shithole is because all of my friends and all of my family have moved out of Paris. They're gone. Like, everybody I know has left Paris because it's turned into such a rank shithole. So, I mean, Paris, you're going to host your event there. Okay, fair enough. But also, it's not like you're going to decrease cost. It's like you're fine. It's going to cost a fortune in Denmark to run the event. But I mean, you're going to go to France. They have as many laws and protections for the worker, labor laws, etc. All the cost is still going to be.
I have something.
It's going to go through the roof to host an event there as well.
So why not host
host it on home turf where you control all the variables, and at least you know you have your studio, like you say, you have the arena that you've run many events in. Just fucking crush it. Run the perfect major and just nail it out of the park right there. Why not do that rather than take a risk and go somewhere else that could potentially go to shit?
I'll give you the reason. It's actually a political reason. I won't go into this again because I thought.
Oh, they can't have an English cast in France either. You know, you have to have a French language cast in the French stadium.
Quick query. Do you remember why Nel bragged that he knows Macron? Do you remember?
What?
Because a few months ago,
not somebody you'd brag about knowing either. I mean, like
a few months ago, Macron did a public speech where he invited all these esports people from within France, Law from the LEC, Nel. It was for a Trackmania cop, but Macron appeared and he did a speech where he explained that he wants France to like lead the world in esports. This is real, and he name checks that he wants to have the League of Legends World Championship, Dota TI International, and CS:GO majors in France. So here's the problem.
So it's entirely subsidized then by the French government.
That's my suspicion, because think about it. Think about what happened with Antwerp. It was the opposite. That stupid mayor came out before because he doesn't know about CS and Navi and was like, no Russians will be coming to this country. And we were like, bro, you're about to hold the major and Navi's got Russians. And so that had to get reversed, didn't it, behind the scenes? Well, I think the vibe is the opposite. France must be the most open to it in theory. And as you say, maybe they like grease the wheels by helping you with the stadium
they're doing that,
and the visas.
100%. This whole thing must be getting subsidized. That's the only reason then at that point. And that also makes a lot of sense, dude. Yes. Okay, so fair enough.
Maybe that's why they want to run the event.
That makes a lot of sense because, again, this is Blast we're talking about. We still don't know what the Abu Dhabi deal looks like for them. They've signed a 3-year deal with Abu Dhabi Gaming. So that's the Arab Emirates that are associated with them in some way. Now, we don't know if it's financially or what. They're going to host the World Championship down there. So, I mean, there's that angle with it. But even then I was like, okay, are they getting money from there? Is that how they've all of a sudden boosted, got the juice necessary to be able to run a major? But if they found a way to unlock it where all of a sudden they're getting their whole major subsidized, if they can get a venue for free or something like that to run it out, already that's a huge cost that comes off the top. And then you get the Abu Dhabi money coming in a little bit, and there you go. Maybe that's literally the only way that this works out for them, is that they're able to make this play because it's entirely subsidized by the state.
So just to bring it back to that topic, because if you know when Nel did that tweet, he did it in the most obnoxious way ever, Semmler. For real, he did a tweet where he showed the letter from Macron's office. He pretended like it was from Macron himself. And he was like, when people like Richard Lewis and Thorin are saying that I am anonymous, but even Macron knows who I am. Except, as I just mentioned, it was an invite to a Trackmania tournament. By the way, I didn't even know that game still ran. It's like some French-only shit if you don't know. So what's mad about that's like Shootmania. That's also just French esports only. So what's mad about that is he hasn't even thought it through. You've owned yourself when I find out it's a Trackmania tournament. If it's a CS:GO, yeah, that'd be banging if they invited you and not me. I'd look like a dickhead. So my joke with this, I'll be really careful how I set this up. I'll make it that I'm not talking about France. This is if just a hypothetical different country with a totally different leader, definitely not Macron. And this is what I imagine he thinks happened in that office. Not Macron, not in France. So in hypothetical, not France, not Macron. Imagine the world leader turns from just going, Mummy, and then they go, oh, mister, you have to... Oh, sorry, that would be France. The hypothetical, hey, stop your morning meal, sir. You need to arrange the esports journalists. And he goes, oh, excellent. Bring me Nel, the most famous Trackmania journalist in the world. Anyway, I am busy now. Mama. Not France, though, not Macron. Twitch, it's not Macron I'm talking about.
This is all in a dream. This is all in a dream, of course.
Exactly. I don't care, mate. I don't care.
What the... Okay.
Whatever.
Just that.
That's invested by the numbers. All right, don't worry about it.
Wait. I need to undo something here. Hold on. Yeah, sweet. I inadvertently deleted a link that I wanted there. All right. Yeah, I mean, we'll see if this is we'll see if this is what happens, if it's going to happen in Paris. I mean, odds are we've probably just nailed it right there. This is entirely subsidized event. They're getting huge handouts and they're going to be able to run it there. I mean, I still feel like it's going to be incredibly challenging for this team, for Blast to be able to pull it off, considering the size of their team. I don't think we're going to see anything new or crazy then in that case, right? I think a lot of it is going to focus on just running a really clean, tight show. I don't think there's going to be anything crazy or innovative, considering the amount of focus that they still need to put into finishing this year strong, let alone getting ready for next year. Although it is in May, I think, this major that'll be going down. So, I mean, that is still like a solid chunk of time. It's like 9 months or something to prepare for it. So, I mean, you could still get some work done, but I mean, it's not like Blast have a huge team. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting, but like going to Paris, Nice.
I'm just going to say this. If you're listening, Blast, like, I won't say the obvious thing because it sounds too self-serving. Like, just hire all the best people. Stop thinking of all the politics. You know, I'm not going to do that. It's too obvious. What I'll say is this. If you're listening, Blast, here's how you make your major the greatest one of all time. No one will ever be able to fuck with you. Convince Valve to let you do double Olymp playoffs. If you do that, you are legends. If you can pull that off, you got a lot of months to show them
the format's probably already been booked, dude.
It probably has. You know? I know.
That's the thing. Like, they probably already sold them on the format. Right. And, you know, they're probably... Why are they going to mess with the format anyway?
No, let's bring it together. Right, here's what we need to do. Call up the A-team. We need Yanko, Moses, Blair. If anyone could make this event do what they want.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Just get him in the mix. Oh,
or as DDK would say, there's a new sheriff in town. Oh shit, that's the Deagle.
That's the Deagle.
He's rated that like the first cast as well. I know. And he comes in hot with the sheriff razor dropping in. Oh fuck! That was my whole career. Honest guys, I love CS. I love CS. That's all it was true though, isn't it? I know. Great caster.
All right, another big event news that I just saw pop up is that IEM China has been canceled. So that
the jokes write themselves. I know, don't they? What was that? I imagine what happened was ESL was like, they were like, all right. Right, get ready to set up for IEM China, and then just like a drone flew. Citizens, move back into. You will not be running an esports tournament. Like, oh, okay, yep. There never was an IEM China. In fact, I love China, and China is the totally best country in the world with no crop. Anyway, goodbye. I'm off to Poland. Or are you? But anyway, yeah.
Or are you? Yeah. Going back to Germany.
Yeah, that's the bad thing. How could you ever have an event in China now? By the way, I feel like I'm the one on crazy pills, Semmler. I remember 6 months ago. I remember a year ago. Why is everyone now just like, yeah, I can't wait to go to ESL Australia, and then after that, IEM China, straight into Brazil, and they're like, what are you? You're the ones who were telling me the world was like the apocalypse. What are you talking about? What the like? That's mental, mate. That's mental. What are you talking about? Why are you not mentioning that anymore? Why are you just pretending like that didn't happen? It happened. There's a reason we had to put it this way. If all that shit didn't happen, fucking Big wouldn't have been number one in the world, would they? They're online as fuck. Like, this is mental. Why would you pretending history didn't happen? What?
Put it behind you. Put it behind you.
I've got to memory hole it. Exactly, memory hole
Unless you think, no, but that's the thing. They'll never let you put it behind you because, you know, it's still going to be a thing and it's still going to be held, even though it's all, you know, we can get down that path. But yeah, definitely. It's like, oh, yes, absolutely want to go to Australia where the camps are and absolutely want to go to China. Absolutely want to go to China as well, where they're literally welding their citizens into their buildings.
Oh, no.
Yes. Shanghai is still actively shut down and people are starving over the period of 10 weeks because they weren't allowed to leave their apartments. It's like, yes, I absolutely want to go to China to host this major, host this big event. That sounds like a fantastic time. And also, why is Asia not getting more slots?
Weird how that works, innit? I know.
It's funny. I don't know, man. But that was just one thing that I saw in passing that was kind of amusing. And they're just like, well, because of the instability in this game. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It is unstable. I mean, apparently their economy is crashing as well. So, I mean, like, who knows what the hell's going to happen over there on that side of things. So I guess ESL kind of getting out of there, getting out of Dodge. Fair enough.
The joke is ESL should be forced by China to like spin that the other way around, 1984 style. Like, oh, the reason we had to pull out China was because their economy is actually double plus good, so we can't even afford to go there. Like, it's the absolute opposite, like truth just lie. Like, and we'd just like to say we do support the party in every possible way.
It makes you wonder, dude. If the next major, okay, so you have this, so, you know, there was 2 majors in 2023, Blast or Nail in the first one. The rumor was that Perfect World was going to do the second one in 2023. Is that even going to be a thing now down the line? Who knows where they stand in a year's time when it's going to be time to actually start setting up for that second major?
I'll also never get over that. That name's aged really poorly. The Chinese tournament organizer is called Perfect World. Yeah. It'd be nice to live in one, wouldn't it? Where it wouldn't be you cunts running everything, would it? I'm never. Actually, after this episode, it's fair play. I'm never getting any of the majors. It's over at this point, innit? I know. After the not Macron impression into Perfect World, I mean, I probably shouldn't even go to the major anyway, even if they invite me.
At that point, no, yeah, it's like, it does make you wonder, dude. I don't know. It's so funny. It's so funny watching all this happen. But yeah, there you go. So that was just a little bit, just throw that in there real quick. Other event news: ESL canceling out the China event, so we'll see what they decide to fill the calendar with then, because you can be sure that ESL are not going to let there be a gap in the calendar for another tournament organizer to run an event in. They're definitely going to put something there. So that's just the way that
the only gap that ESL allows in the industry is between the arse cheeks of talent after they fucking negotiate with these guys. Shout out whoever I'm secretly subtweeting with that comment. You know who you are. All I'm saying is potty that booty hole shot and get a fucking spine, homie.
Okay, then. Now I'm curious.
There you go. Now they know. Now they know who I'm talking to. Well, the person I'm talking to. Yeah.
I mean, there is some more ESL news, actually. This one was thrown in there. So Poland and Baltic states ban entry for Russians. And so Katowice 2023 might miss some big names. This is a news bit that just came out actually today. And so I'm kind of curious, or actually yesterday this one was, this is what it came out. But Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland have agreed on a common regional approach and hereby express their political will and firm intention to introduce national temporary measures for Russian citizens holding EU visas in order to address imminent public policy and security threats and restrict the entry into the Schengen area for the Russian citizens traveling for tourism, culture, sport, and business purposes.
Sport, there you go. Sport. By the way, if you don't know, because this is actually a very key term, every time I go to the opposite direction, I would go to Ukraine or Belarus or Russia. That's what you would always have to list on the passport, on the visa. It was always like either culture or sport. It's how because obviously between the two, isn't it? Esports. So as much as people are going to think like it doesn't cover it, because I saw this is what makes these stories confusing if you're not like super in that scene. I'd actually need like Rich Lewis to do a video so I'd understand it myself. Like as far as I can tell, the big headlines like no Russians allowed. So that's like, oh my god, what about Perfector? And then like Tronic and all those fucking sick players on Spirit. What about them? But as usual, I don't know if this is true or not. A million people go, well, it doesn't quite apply to them, and actually maybe they'll be allowed. Blah, blah, blah. And the problem is, I don't know what the actual raw facts are. Like, what is this, for example, is this a foreshadowing? Is it all definitely going to go that way?
Well, it specifically includes sports and business purposes as well as tourist visits. But like the thing is, are they going to ban Russian teams? Because then if it's the players that you're banning, that's a different situation.
That's
from
wild,
a fan who's traveling for the sporting event. You know, like say they want to travel to Poland for a football match or something. Okay, fine, fair enough. But you know, are you going to ban Russian players from competing?
That's the concern, right?
That's the concern. That's the obvious big concern here. And so I mean, this is still one of ESL's flagship events of the year. Katowice is one that they put a lot of support behind. So it's like, imagine if all of a sudden you're going to have some of the teams from some of the most competitive teams from the most competitive region right now get yeeted out because of some restrictions. I mean, that's a disaster as far as ESL are concerned. And they still haven't settled on dates yet for Katowice 2023 either. And it makes me wonder if that's got anything to do with this, or if it's just, you know, still planning because it's still like what, 8 or 9 months away.
You want to know something sick? I've just realised they can't catch a fucking break. ESL. Think about the last 3 Katowices. 2020, Navi wins it, smash everyone. Wow, but in the playoffs, no crowd. Remember? The stuff happened before the playoffs, so they won. No, it didn't count because they just did it no crowd. So everyone's like, oh, "Is it legit?" And then we went online. Next year, it was an only online tournament. Well, that sucks for history. That's why when Gambit wins it in the like Virtus Pro in the final, it's like who gives a shit, you know? And then the next year, it's the one where the conflict began. It began before the playoffs of this one. And so again, you were looking for an amazing playoffs, and it sort of, if you remember, half the teams were from the CIS region, and it sort of fucked a bunch of them over. So if it's going to wreck next year as well, like, look, I don't like Carmack. You might know that. And I think Katowice is a shithole. Shithole. I'm not going there again. I can say that. Now, you might be like, watch out, Thorin. There's loads of British people in the UK. 1, I'm not in the UK. And 2, that's sort of, you know, why I think some of these things. Weird. It's almost like people who could leave and tell me things that are bad about their country. I might repeat them, so it's weird, isn't it? So that would bring it back, though. I actually sort of feel sorry for them. They've just been wrecked on one of their flagship events year after year after year after year, and this one would be the worst. Because if you don't think about it, fans, if no Russians can attend, right, that's Navi and Perfector, that's Perfector and Electronic out of Navi, the IGL and support. That's Monacy out of G2. We can keep going, guys. Like, this is going to be a really big deal. And let's add in this detail. this is also so fucking sad from an esports context, not just because these players are going to be punished for the behavior of their country. And I'll always say this, Semmler, I hate this bullshit game people play where simultaneously these two mutually exclusive things are true. Simultaneously, Putin was always a dictator who never held real elections, and he just holds power like some sort of like a Soviet leader, and he just pretends to have elections and he terrorizes people. That's why he was supposed to be evil, right? But then when a war happens or a conflict, now suddenly they have a free democratic process in Russia, and actually every citizen is obliged to fight back and vote Putin out. And just, which is it? It cannot be both. But as far as I can tell, when it suits you, if you hate Russians, you just pick, I'll have this one today and this one tomorrow. I'll have my cake, but I'll also eat my cake. And I still have my cake, but I ate my cake. And I still have my cake, but I ate my cake. And I'm just bored of this game because I don't think Electronic can stop any kind of a conflict. I don't think it has anything to do with him. I think he's done everything he could within reason to not be involved in that shit, to go out of his way to just attend events, play CS, frag out. He's even doing a great fucking job in the game. Never seems to complain even about the fact that obviously I assume some people hate on him. He just got whatever. I understand it's my people and it's probably frustration. So the idea you're going to punish all these people, or little fucking 18-year-old Monarchy or 17-year-old, he just has to quit. He has to go and tell Putin what to do. This is pathetic. Like, this is just people who are using the smoke screen of a very real thing that's horrible, and they're going, right, this is my chance to fuck up some totally unrelated people that have nothing to do with this. I hate those people. Oh, but wait a minute, I'm the good guy. I'm the hero by fucking up this 17-year-old kid's life. Like, what I hear about that is, remember, I'll rewind. Why did everyone say Simple actually transcended Counter-Strike at Katowice? Because his speech wasn't like, it sucks that there's a war, or fuck Russia. His speech was like, I am Ukrainian. I have played with Ukrainians and Russians. With Russians stood next to him as he said this. And his whole take was sort of like, we're not about that shit. Like, we're about peace. We're gamers. We're a team. We're not about conflict between these things. We want the end to war and all that. That was one of the greatest speeches ever. The joke is, for Simple to do that speech again, if these restrictions come in, Electronic won't be stood next to him. You've invalidated the whole fucking speech. I know that wasn't ESL. By the way, it's not ESL who's done this. Obviously, it's the government of the country. And if people don't know, if that list sounds weird to you, so Baltic countries plus Poland, that's basically the fuck Russia coalition of the world. Like, yeah, obviously those countries would think that. I mean, obviously, part of it is they have their own concern that they're going to be.
Can you hold it against them, considering the history they had with the Soviet Union? I mean,
yeah, there's obviously a lot of shit that's gone. Obviously, atrocities and all sorts of shit back and forth in those. Yeah, of course, they've got an incredibly long history. People don't know.
It's a very long and recent history in terms of the Soviet Union and just suppressing their people and communism, socialism, all that fun stuff, disappearing people and all sorts of good stuff. I mean, there's a reason why those countries are exceptionally based now today, because they've actually had to deal with that sort of shit, and they're not it wasn't like, oh, you're in Western Europe where you never actually had to deal with Soviet domination. It's like they had to deal with it and they had to fight it off, and they eventually got free, and now they know what it is to be free. And so, but that's the really so I guess there's that little personal thing going on as well, where they're if they get the chance to stick it to Russia, they're probably going to do what they can.
I mean, that's even one area where I'll just throw this out there for a funsie, since everyone remembers the shit with Katowice in 2014. Everything I said there was either a joke or actually just a subjective judgment, or some of it was just accurate fact. But one thing I'll say is, even though I'm never going there again, yeah, Poland's grown on me a little bit in some ways. It has got some things about it that I sort of yearn for in the other countries, There you go. Basically, they don't worship Moloch. That's probably enough for you. It's a breadcrumb in it. That's a little breadcrumb for you. That's a breadcrumb and a half, but you have to leave it there, obviously.
Yeah, can't
leave it there.
All right. Let's talk about some roster moves. The big one, I guess we can just hop right into the big one. Or okay, hold on. Actually, before we get into the big one, there's one that's a bit smaller, but I just want to get your take on this.
Okay.
Because I think you actually put this one in here where Valde on why he hasn't joined Astralis, and it's not I'm not the takeaway from that interview was, I'm not the one you need to be asking about this. Now, I kind of checked the interview. That's all you really got out of the interview. So I was curious, like, did you have anything? It's a provocative statement, isn't it?
Well, because here's the thing. I often have said in the past, like, guys, why does no one point out that Astralis, the org that won 4 majors in CSGO, doesn't sign big players? They don't pay big money. Everyone's going to go, that's bullshit. They signed Blame F and Confit. They weren't the biggest players in the fucking world, you idiot. And Complexity was completely busted. It was the end of that project, and they just got them. And by the way, the team wasn't awesome. My problem is this. Why is Heroic better than Astralis? Because they don't sign the Heroic players. They don't even sign the players that would go to Heroic, like Tesses and all these guys and Shush. Dude, they didn't even get little Shush from Mad Lions. They don't even get that level of player. They're getting fuckers from academy squads and tricked and going, come on. And like in that scenario, right, the point I'm going to bring up is this. If they're the ones saying no to Valde, and now you hear these rumours, Device is talking to multiple teams. If they don't get Device, how can you as a fan, I mean, I know we talked about the business things in the last episode, how can you ever believe Astralis is going to be on top ever again? Ever. I'm being serious. Like this feels, I mean, look, this is going to be a bad take because in the Premier League, actually, Man United's been half decent recently. But the last 4 or 5 years, Man United's been terrible relative to they still spend loads of money and they want to be one of the great teams again. So everyone now who's a hater of Man U was like, good, suffer for like 10 years. It feels like Astralis is never going to go back to the top, mate. It sounds like they don't want to spend money. They don't. They just want to get everything as cheap as possible. If you can't even sign Valde, who are you signing, mate? You know what I mean?
Well, we do have the segment every week where we take a look at the share price of Astralis and how it just continues to plummet. So that's always a good indicator of whether or not they're flush. The other bit of news.
Here's my joke for you. I've got a good joke for you. You know, I always say the thing I find boring about Nicola Nyholm and Carmack is all they do is just lie and spin bad news the opposite direction as good. So the joke is it is like, in 1984, he has to actually announce that like chocolate rations have gone down. But he does the opposite. He announces that they've gone up a tiny bit, and then people are going, "Yeah, double plus good." But they all know that it was actually opposite. Good, yeah. So basically, that's what they do with.
Go up.
That's what Nyholm does basically. So the joke in this scenario is like the stock was probably worth like $10 at one point, but the way he spins it is like, "Good news, guys. The stock is now worth $1, 3.337 elite, the true gamer stock price." You know what? That's like the God tier spin, isn't it? Like, holy shit, he's done it again. All true gamers will buy in now. Exactly. Exactly. I'm amazed that Nicola Nyholm hasn't figured out an esports DeFi program. Like, if you just give me $1 million of yours, I'll give you $5 a day, and then like one of those like, and then I promise I won't leave with it. I am sort of like a bank. I'm actually just a guy that you can't ever track down and get, but I'm a bank. Give me the someone should have done that by now.
I love when you watch those older series where they, it's like taking place in the World War I, that era, and you have these guys talking about their investments. And they're like, oh, there's this guy Ponzi right now, the big returns. And you're just watching like, no, don't do it.
The esports equivalent that tied into Astralis is every single time someone comes along and makes a website called esports.com. It's always a fucking scam, isn't it? Of course. Because it's the most like clickbait tourist website of all time. Esports.com. It's in your ass. Like, fucking hell. I know it's mental, isn't it? It's just fucking garbage, isn't it?
Well, like there was actually, okay, so and there's a point to be made here, and that is, and I'm on board with you in terms of like, why are Astralis able to pull any triggers? Why aren't they able to actually get any money going when they're still actually getting, there was another Astralis announcement actually, and that was that they just joined the pack and are fielding a female roster, fielding a female team for ESL Impact.
Okay.
And this is actually alongside NiP. Within a couple of days of each other, they both come out saying that they've actually that they've gone ahead and picked up female rosters for this ESL Impact League. So this Impact League is actually like making some waves. But from like the Astralis side of things, it's obvious like, well, you have money to invest in a female league. Granted, it's not a lot of money, but still you have to like budget for like upkeep and all that sort of thing. Like you have money to invest into that, but not into picking up players to make the main roster, the main driving engine of your team better. Winning more tournaments, i.e. getting more sponsor money, i.e. selling more jerseys, more income, right? You would think that would be the priority rather than picking up secondary and third level teams, right? Because they already have Astralis talent, right, as well. So it's like, I found like the timing of this was a little bit interesting considering there were potential moves to be made from Astralis, but they're here, spending money on other things. That aside, it is good for the female scene that there's more teams that are apparently willing to buy in on this ESL Impact project, and clearly there has to be something because it's a lot of the Louvre agreement teams now that are pretty much all stacking in together. Because now NiP also come out and announced that they're picking up a team of their own and that they're all going to get involved in this league together at the as it's kicking off again now. So that bodes well, at least for the female scene, that you've actually got these orgs now that are willing to get behind this. Obviously, what's going to be very curious, what's very interesting now is to see what the viewership is going to be like. Still kind of a mystery because there was a bit of buzz, going into this first season, and they did actually admittedly do pretty decent in terms of viewership. So I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do this time around. If in the second half of the year they're going to be able to get some decent numbers, and maybe there is actually some money to be made here, and it does actually make sense considering the investment that ESL have laid down in this. But did you have any thoughts real quick on those roster moves?
I will say on the Astralis female one part I find a little bit suspicious. I wonder about this, just as like an outsider. 'Cause obviously, I don't know the level of the players and who the good female players are. Like, I know some names from years in the past, but I don't know if they're good now. Like,
That's the thing, exactly. The only ones I know now are like ultra veterans. You know, they've been around for a long time. Goose Breeder, Aurora.
The problem is, I don't know if they're actually good enough. They're the equivalent of like the Smith Scout tiers on too long, so I can't comment on that. But I will just say this: I noticed they didn't just sign a team, Semmler. They signed like the core of a team, and then they added some new players. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, because it's a little bit suspicious. Remember, Astralis always has an angle. Always has an angle. So the angle I'm looking at here is this. Let me just read out who's on this team. Remember, it took a long time before you had international teams in CS, in like male division, all that. So think about this roster. You've got a Norwegian player. You've got a Hungarian player, you've got a German player, you've got a Bulgarian player, you've got a French player, and the coach is from Spain. The team, of course, from Denmark. That looks like you are some mega cynical focus group guys, some like United Colours of Benetton shit. Like, right, we need to hit as many markets as we can. Like, we're going to need someone from France, we're going to need someone from the Nordics, someone from like the Baltics. Then that's not Russia though. We're going to have one person. You're from Spain. Get the Iberican market. Like, that just looks like you have so cynically put this team together. It's mental, mate. What the fuck is this? That looks like when they used to make those pop bands back in the day, and they're like, right, this guy's like the edgy loner. This guy's the lovable fat guy. This guy's he's the heartthrob with the high school captain of the prom or whatever. Like, it's like, when they do all that, like, you just pick your adventure or whatever. Like, it was mental. It almost looks like that. Like, I don't know if that's true. Maybe these are all bagger players. Maybe it's actually like FaZe Clan. I'm just talking out my ass.
I mean, it seems like there's one team right now that's dominating that league, and everybody else is kind of playing catch up on it.
And it was that.
So I think it's Nemiga is the team.
Oh, right.
Always have to be careful about that. Always have to be careful about that one. Yeah. Pause.
If people don't know Nemiga, it's like Belarusian or something, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think they are.
I think Vilga is actually running the ship over there. So,
I'll say, are you ready for some fire? Because by the way, I'll never hold back on motherfuckers who come at me. Do you want to know why Vilga can always get fucking wrecked anytime I ever hear her name mentioned? Because she is so fucking out of line. It's mental, mate. She made a tweet years ago where when on a broadcast, I did a joke about Dennis. You know the Dennis from Mousespots, the shit one? I made a joke and she just tweeted out and tagged me in it or something. Like, I don't know why Dennis doesn't just punch Thorin in the head at a LAN or something. And I just said some joke like, you'd both miss. Because they're shit at CS, aren't they? So I was like, fuck you. Excuse me, wait, explain that to me. If you want equality, how are you going around telling people to beat me up at a LAN? By that logic, by the way, does that work the other way around? Can I get a friend who's a female player and go, right, Vilga, I've got your fucking match up. Can I be like Dana White? I've got some fucking... Listen, and don't worry, by the way, because of the new rules in ESL Impact, my female player looks like they're from Dagestan, mate. Yeah, they're fucking fire. Oh, they're ready to go. So you want a little scuffle, do you?
You're going to go find strong woman to get in this.
Yeah, exactly. A very strong woman. A very independent, strong woman who doesn't need no man, if you know what I mean. No man. Yeah, exactly.
Obvious.
I don't know if they passed the test, though, but, even so.
I just like how this is some weird Helena Troy shit, where it's like we're going back in time and all of a sudden it's the women just getting the men to fight each other. And
I know,
it's not like we haven't heard this story a few times already throughout the years.
Just whacking it though.
But that is funny. That is funny that she's trying to pull that sort of thing. But
this was years ago, to be fair.
Exactly. And it was a while ago, and also it's good to see. I mean, it's just good to see some more movement over there. We'll see how that pans out. I mean, if the viewership is there to justify it, we can keep an eye on that. And I guess I will keep an eye on that and just kind of see how things are going in comparison to other leagues like We Play, etc. Because it gives you at least an idea of where they're at. That they're going to be doing all of the the hosting it in Faceit, hosting it in ESA, hosting it the streams and those sorts of platforms as well to boost the numbers. So I'll be very curious to see what the total outcome is for that, and if it gives any kind of longevity to the league, because you can't just keep donating money into it if there's no return, if there's no viewership. It was like E-League, we needed to hit a certain number, and then they were just like, listen, we need to hit this number. If we don't hit this number, we can't really keep running the league. So there has to be a number like that. There has to be something, some kind of point where it's we need to hit at least this.
Not if it's just politics.
Go for it.
Not if it's just politics. Not if it's esports washing.
And then really.
By the way. People don't think of that angle, Semmler. This is why I know people in esports do need a little baby, everything broken down, and then fed, come on, look at the plane. Ooh, They don't know what food is all like how to put. So here's the problem, right? You know, when people talk about sports washing and the fact that the Saudis are doing esports washing, oh, it's worse than that. Think of what they're doing, Semmler. They're sponsoring a tournament that promotes women, gender, diversity, and inclusion when they're a country where you can be like stoned and whipped and put in prison for Twitter posts as a woman, and you're not allowed to arrange like
the veil.
all sorts of shit in that country. So what they're doing is actually, this is even worse, fans. They're going to make you say, Saudi Arabia, ESL and Savvy Gaming, they are brilliant because they support women when they, by definition in their country, which would the leader of their country is involved with that company, do not. They have sold you, they have washed themselves clean using Western woke shit. By the way, ladies, that's exactly what you guys told us you didn't want. You told us you didn't want patriarchal males from the past who believe women are inferior and are not allowed the same rights and accesses to come in and control things and be the ones who have the purse strings and tell you what to do. But somehow you're cool with it if they have $1 billion. If they have $1 billion, you're cool with it. If they didn't, you'd be trying to get them cancelled off the internet. But you can't, you just love it in this. Like, I know the way esports is going. I don't really blame the women for that. But I will circle back to one last thing, which is if it isn't politics, I think it's just waste and sports washing and that. But say it's real, like you said, it has to be eventually its own thing that has its own viewer base, its own fans. You nailed it in the past. There's that Bill Burr rant about the WNBA. It's like, pull your finger out your ass. All you ladies telling us your WNBA is good, but you can't be watching, otherwise the numbers would be great. The numbers would be through the roof. But because they're just not, are they? They're garbage numbers. So in the same thing, if ESL Impact isn't popping off in terms of, no, it isn't that everyone's misogynistic. And no, it's that even women don't want to watch. And that's your choice. I didn't make you do that. You can watch wherever you want.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I was actually really curious about, I want to look into it and see what happened around this Valorant event that's going on in Istanbul. Because I mean, talk about also, like Yeah.
It's a world championship.
And, like Valorant, Riot, Mega Woke, and they're going to go host an event in Turkey. It's like in Turkey, you're going to go and promote your event in Turkey. Got it. Like this is that's an interesting choice of destination to go to. Definitely nothing to do with Sharia over there. Was very curious to see how that's going to pan out. So it's the same vein on this side. It's the same vein. It's the same vein exactly.
By the way, boys,
are you going to go to Abu Dhabi Gaming and host a female tournament? Are you all going to have to wear the burqa? Like, how's it going to work?
No, if people think that's a joke, by the way, what it also infers, listen, by the way, all these women who are actually like the female players and just people on teams in the CSL, I'm not including any of them if they're not vocal. If they just shut up and play CS or they just only talk about things from West, that's fine. The ones I can't handle are these, Semmler. The ones who do attack people. Because if you attack people, but they're just Western figures on Twitter who you have no blowback from beyond a tweet, but then you won't say the same thing to the exact people killing and murdering women, you've actually shown that, one, you've sold out women because by your own definition, you won't defend them. And two, you are a coward and a bully because you only pick fights you can win. You will never take the fight where it's like, that guy could fuck me up. But you know what? Every one of your heroes in history, the women who fought, they were doing that. They were going straight at the jaws of the machine. They were literally throwing themselves in front of horses and dying. And you won't even say, no, I won't play a children's video game tournament in a country where they stone women. What the fuck would it take for you to grow a spine and a conscience?
Damn. All right, well, on that uplifting note, I think we should take a quick 5-minute break.
Fun, yeah.
Let's just take a quick 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to wrap up some of the roster moves. There's the big NIP move that we need to talk about, and then we also have your questions. So 5 minutes, we'll be right back.
Of course, I'm coming with a bet for you. I decided we'd skip ahead to the next Pro League group, because obviously when this comes out, like the Group B will almost have wound down, and I think this is a nice little lock. ENCE is actually at 1.403 against Heat, the French team. Now, obviously, that team's gotten some better and better players. It's canny little squad. It's not terrible at all. It's obviously the best French team, isn't it? Still got some like people who've been true pros. But ENCE with Valde and some players, I think are going to be pretty good. They're not going to be as good as with Spinks necessarily, although we'll see. Maybe they round the team out more and become less of a one-dimensional in terms of the fraggers. But I still think they've got some good talent there and some really solid pieces. And they don't have the great number one piece. They've got really good pieces elsewhere. So for them to get 1.405 for a land best of 3, yes, please. I'll be taking the ENCE side of that. In fact, I'm going to go big. I'm going to say I'll do 1,200. I'm fairly confident they're going to win this one. My boy Snappy's going to pull through. Dija is still there, and I can still say that name. Valde's there. Some Pius is there to be the new device of Spain, and used by Snappy as if he was Glaive. I think that's a banger bet.
All right, thanks for waiting, everybody. We're back into the mix, and we're just going to hop right into the news. Aleksib. They're on OG. It's been a while. They're linked in my mind. But Aleksib has had a nice long break after the roster change on G2, and he's found a new home in NIP. Not an expected move, not what I expected to see. Definitely, like, NiP are a team that have the means to bring him on, but NiP for a long period of time now, and they really seem to lean into it, was a Swedish team. They wanted to speak Swedish on the roster. They wanted to focus on having a Swedish roster. It was one of the elements that attracted Broland to the roster when he made the roster shift over from Fnatic to NiP, was that he didn't want to speak English. He wanted to speak Swedish again. He comes over to NiP. That's the thing. They're speaking Swedish. It's a Swedish team. And that's all changed now. So Aleksib has now been added to the roster. Plopsky has been benched. Hampus is going to go back to being a rifler. He's not going to be IGL. And Rez will be the opper for the team now as well. We just got that news from DJL, who is one of the coaches, or the coach behind the team right now. And so that's been elaborated on. And so Rez, it looks like he will be the one taking over the op role as well. So that's a lot to handle already. But I don't know. When I heard this news, it really was that double take of, like, really not expecting this move. Didn't feel like that was what NiP needed. Always felt like it was NiP needed the op more than anything. And so the more pressing question was always just like, are you going to just bring Device back on now? And Plopsky takes a seat and you bring Device back on, Esatag, Rez, and Broland as riflers, Hampus as caller. That feels like you can cook some, you can do some work with that roster. So the fact that they're not replacing the op, in fact, they're moving the op role over to a different player who is doing fine with the rifle, and also shifting up the leadership, and bringing in a very structured IGL at that, who believes in a very tight, structured kind of play. It feels like this is the kind of move where it's a little bit of a shock to hear that they're going for this move when you have a major that's just a couple of months away, and that doesn't leave you a whole lot of time to prepare for it. So let me get your thoughts on this, man. What did you think when you heard this news?
Right. First of all, it's another one I do on sake of banter, but I'll give a different take. Right. Basically, like, I'll do some other parts of it. So one thing is, I was absolutely shocked by this. I never heard anything behind the scenes like this. As you said, it was always implied like Swedish players. In fact, if you remember, when Device joined, a massive selling point was he can speak Swedish. He's been in Sweden for ages. It wasn't that we're going international, we're doing Danish now. That's why Esatag joined. It was a surprise. That was like, okay, that's weird. Is it half Danish now? What's going on? So the implication was you had to speak Swedish. So spoiler, even those Finns learn some Swedish in school, like most of them aren't super fluent, and their accent would be impossibly fucked up anyway. So you would, if people don't know how they speak like really strange. So anyway, that means to me, this is like, if you sign Aleksib, let's be real, you are saying we are now permanently an international team. NiP is an international team from now on. Yep. It's not a Swedish team, which is good in this sense. It actually infers something fans won't think about. If Rez doesn't work out, mate, if you can pick anyone who speaks English, you can get tons of AWPers. The problem was there was no Swedish AWPers. That was what was fucking you. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, Esatag wasn't good on the AWP, but I always thought he was supposed to be a fucking support player anyway. So to me, if you look at, like, Rez, true, Rez was really good with a rifle at one point, but actually I saw him play, even though they were doing badly in the games, I saw him play with the AWP. He wasn't bad, actually, because he has good, like, first bullet aim, so his flicks are decent. Like, he had some skills, clearly. So that's not a bad sort of band-aid until we maybe get some AWP who speaks English. And I'd also throw in there, I actually think a reason why they might go international now, why that's the future, actually makes sense if you think about it. Because remember, it's only a couple of years ago that Jonas Gunderson, formerly known as Kalk, when he used to be a 1.6 player, he's from Denmark. He was from North, if people don't know. He's not Swedish, but he's the guy who's overseeing their project and, in theory, decides the players that come into their team. So I think having a Dane there has made them think, look, we tried the Swedish experiment as long as we could. There's no Swedes left, / we can't get them, and we've sold Broland. Like, let's just go to an approach now. We bought Broland. He's the only one that was good. Let's just go to an approach that's international, because the problem they had in that team was the coaching staff did a lot with very little, just basically a rifle corps, no IGL, no AWPer. I'm amazed at the results they did get, but it could never last forever. So the good news about this is I actually think the Aleksib move could be great, because I think they tried everything with that old rifle corps. I think they tried every style of CS. They tried tacticals, they tried being loose, tried just letting people frag out, tried swapping roles for Plopsky and Rez and all. They tried everything, tried putting Esatag on different spots. So instead, here's a good idea. Bring in a guy like Aleksib who has a system. He knows how he wants to play Counter-Strike. He knows how he wants to call Counter-Strike. He knows what he wants you to do in the game. Give him some good pieces, like Esatag as a support element. I'll make a prediction. Esatag looks better under Aleksib. There's one for you. Then you get people like Rez. Well, guess what? You know, everyone's like, Aleksib micromanages too much. If I've got an inexperienced AWP, I might want to micromanage him a bit. That might help him. I might be able to get him into better spots to frag out with that AWP. Because half of the AWP, it's a different type of game sense if people don't know. It's not the same as just peeking a corner with a rifle or going in with a pack. You know, it is a different philosophy. Then you look at people like Brolan. Brolan's pretty young still. I've always thought the thing with Brolan is this. His best player was under Golden, right? And in the Fnatic squad of all those veterans. So I always wonder with a super young guy with skills, not all of them are like NiKo and Simple, they're just like self-driven and have their own perspective and want to be the best and have a massive ego. Some people have star player skills and maybe actually they're still young, so they're like, I'm not quite sure who I am as a player, or should I be the star? Should I ask for the attention? The good thing about an IGL like an MSL or an Aleksib is this. They'll come in and quickly identify, oh, Brolan, yeah, you're my star rifle, actually. I'm going to use you in this way, at this spot. You're just going to frag out. I'm going to put you in these scenarios. You just hit him in the head. Don't worry about, you don't have to, but should I be? No, it's not democracy. I'm the leader of this team. We do this. Yeah. So I actually think this could be a great move, especially because, as I say, it doesn't even have to be this roster that works. If you're now speaking English, you can then get a better AWPer. You could upgrade the team too. And so we know those rifles are good. You got some pieces to work with. And like I said, I'd never expected this move in a million years. I think it's cool, but I never expected it.
Neither did I. I thought that they were actually, I mean, that really does almost put an end to the Swedish scene, in a sense.
I mean, Fnatic even went international, yeah, so they have.
That's the thing, yeah. Fnatic were the mainstay. NiP were the mainstay for years. These were the two
French teams.
These were the two Swedish rosters. French teams are pretty much on a downward swing now as well. I mean, at least they have heat in France. So I mean, you still have, but I mean, it's still like a team that's like in the mix.
It's so inappropriate to make a joke about the situation with the gas supply. You know, come on. Just because Macron was really tight with him, like, fuck. Oh, sorry. My apologies. You meant heat, H-E-T.
Yeah. Not
my bad.
It's not
the question is, will they have heat in Germany later this year? What? Is they having like another Cologne? Yeah. Something like that. You know what, ESL? You can suck my Meister shaft. That shouldn't even get you banned. That's a totally legitimate. It just means like Master Championship or something, doesn't it? Master Cup.
Well, I mean, that's it. Exactly. That's the end of an era then. It's like yet another, it is the move over towards international. It feels like international is now going to start being the mainstay, the main trend, instead of it being the odd thing, the way FaZe is an odd thing. Now FaZe really, getting all of the success.
You know, the other thing I could never handle about Plopsky, because he's the guy who got cut. It was an all right player. Like, I didn't have anything against him. He seemed like when he was in good roles, he was pretty decent, but he wasn't like star player. I could never get past the name, because it reminds me of one of the things that, even though it's childish, when I first came to Sweden, Semmler, you know why I'm going with this. I go into a 7-Eleven, you know me, candy fiend. I'm in those things. What we got here? I'm getting the fucking Bilar, the cars, they're straight fire. I'm looking through. Obviously, I go to the chocolate section. What's the chocolate I'm going to see immediately, Semmler? Plop. Mate. Why does it have to be someone in a Swedish accent? Would you like to taste my plop? He's very sweet. Like, oh my God. What are you talking about? What is this madness? Why is it called plop? In every language, that surely is the sound of shit dropping out your ass. And it's chocolate. Make it like fucking licorice or something. Why is it chocolate? Chocolate. That sounds like the dream.
That's the least of their worries when it comes to
That sounds like the dream of that fat German kid in the original Willy Wonka movie from the 70s, who's like addicted to chocolate. He's like, oh, the plop, and he drinks that chocolate river and falls in. It's metal in it. I know. Whatever. What's mad about that? No one ever thinks about this, Semmler. You know, that's like a light-hearted movie, that Willy Wonka. Dude, it was like the movie Saw, but it was just way ahead of its generation. He just invites all these fucked up people and like, would you like to play? I mean, look around my castle. I mean, my factory. And then he's like, oh, look, there's chocolate here. And then they're like, oh my God, my greed, I've fallen in. Oh, it's like, the next winner of the game will be like, what the fuck? This guy at Willy Wonka is just Jigsaw. This is fucking insane. And at the end, I mean, spoiler, that movie is actually trash. Here's why. Because you know at the end, like, Willy just gets to win and get the factory. But he did just steal those drinks. You're a little thief. You should get arrested. He should have been taken out there in cuffs. Slammed in the back. Don't even put his head down under the, when they thing like, oh, what's your head? And they're like, they should just get the fuck in there. And then he should just be in prison under the hot lights. Why are you stealing fizzy lifting drinks, motherfucker? You don't want to pay for that shit? And also, I'll just point this one last thing out. There's a whole rant about Willy Wonka, that original movie from '60 with Gene Wilder. There's one last thing I want to say, and this is fire, because someone did a meme like this, and this just ruins the whole movie. You know that whole premise that at the beginning, all the grandparents are all too decrepit and they can't work and they're all in bed all day. And and they're all starving. Like Willie's mom's making like fucking not what Willie. I can't remember the name of the kid. Charlie. There you go. Charlie's mom's making all that fucking cabbage soup, isn't she? Literally, like the worst thing ever, cabbage soup. And then the joke is, it goes like, when you don't feel like working for 30 years, it just shows you lying in bed. And then it goes, when your grandson wins a golden ticket to the Willy Wonka factory, he's like, doo-doo! He jumps up and starts dancing around. Doo-doo! Like, what? Who the fuck is it? So he's doll scum as well. He's just sponging off the fucking system. Then him and his little Asbo-ridden kid go in there, start nicking fucking fizzy lifting drinks. And then after that, they're like, oi, you cunt, Willy, give me your whole factory. Like, no, I can't fucking handle it, mate. Where's my life supply of chocolate? Gives a pound for your mum. Like, fucking, it's like someone from Borough or something. Fucking hell, I can't take it, mate. Anyway, it is a banging movie, though. Watch it. It's good.
It's a banging movie. Go check it out.
That's the end of the Willy Wonka related segment.
And that's, I think, well, I mean, excuse me. I'm starting to give out on me here.
I don't even know what I was talking about. Plopsky.
No, we were talking about Plopsky.
The digression went off.
That's like
there,
the least egregious of the candy and sweets names in Sweden and Denmark, because they go off the fucking rails on some of those. Dude, can't really say them on
I'll
stream.
never say it on air again, but you all know what happened when I was in Serbia, when some fan, as a joke, brought me that pack of a certain type of candy. That hasn't aged well. That just hasn't aged well, Semmler. That one hasn't aged well.
Yeah, there's a few like that. It is well. Okay, let me see here. Yeah, no, I mean, I think, like, listen, my voice is giving out and my dog is barking, so I'm thinking maybe we move into the questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because that was probably like the last big bit of news to pick up. I mean, there's one that's like talking about Searson a little bit, and I mean, it's the same old harp, and that can be kind of held for a later date, because it's just Searson online versus LAN. It still feels like he's leaving something to be desired on his LAN performances, and so he's once again getting some flack, but I mean, you almost want to say deservedly so. But yeah, that's for another day. Let's move into some questions and see what we can do here. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm still recovering from a cold, and my dog is up alone in the room, so I'm just I think we should get some questions in, and then
if it's something Barker, just bring him in the room with you. It won't pick up on the mic as long as he just chills out behind you. Do it. Just put him behind you for 10 minutes while you answer these questions, 20 minutes or whatever. As long as he shuts up, it won't pick up on the mic. Your mic's really good for only picking up on like the person in front.
Okay, we can try this. I'm gonna go get him because now I'm hearing him bumping around up there.
You just grab him now, and I'll keep talking and entertain the crowd.
All right, I'll be right back.
The other thing I also think is whack as fuck about Swedish candy, right, is they have all that licorice. Now, I like licorice. It's delicious, isn't it? I like it when it's like it got like mint with it, or when it's like really strong, like sweet. But here's what they do. They're fucking perverts. They put salt on the shit. So when you get it, they go, you want some licorice? Yeah. What the fuck is that? That's like the devil's beef jerky. That's the shit that comes out of your ass when your fucking prostate's wrecked. What the fuck? What the fuck? And I know you're all going to be like, it is traditional. Yeah, so's that fucking fermented herring or whatever. I'm not eating that either. Keep that shit, that summer strong or whatever. Keep that shit the fuck away from me. Yeah, exactly. What else about Sweden don't I like? Their social policies. Oh, no, whatever. What else would be good? Yeah. Oh, by the way, it is actually sad that Swedish Counter-Strike is dead now as well, isn't it? By the way, as an aside, I know we didn't bring it up, but that whole topic, I'll give you a little bit of gold here. Everyone goes, no, but I heard that Broland won't play in an international... No, that's just what you say euphemistically to the press when what you mean is, get me the fuck away from Smooya. Oh, Smooya. Oh, I don't want to say fuck UK people, specifically Smooya. So what I'll do is this. I want to play with Swedes. Smooya isn't Swedish, right? He hasn't got a passport. Oh, yep. I want to play with my Brodena Svenska. Hey! When really what you mean is, fuck Smooya. Fuck the Rat King. That's what you really meant, bro. And that's why magically you're back in an international team. Aleksib there, the fucking Moomin talk. Like, oh, hello, Aleksib. Morning. Like, I was just saying it is the great... Anyway, whatever, whatever. That's the way life goes. So, anything else? Anything else about Broland? Let me think. Oh, the obvious thing. I actually have forgotten, to be fair. No, it is. Swedish CS is dead. I've just realised. JW and them, don't they actually... Is it all Swedish? I think they actually have some, like, Nordic players in that one, don't they? I think they do. And Titans isn't all Swedish. There's no all Swedish teams, mate. They're just gone. They're all gone.
All right. He's just going to stay up there.
Yeah. Whatever.
We're going to do questions. It's just like, you know, it's like he has that period where he just gets a little bit more energetic, and it's right about now. So I was expecting him to start making some noise now. So it's just like, ah, fuck it, dude. You can't destroy anything up in that room. We'll just leave him be for a bit. All right. So questions from the GROGcoin.
By the way, I'll just quickly tell you something.
Go for it.
This is one of those moments where it's like, if you're not keeping up to things, stay out of it. Because some guy from our Discord I saw in Twitch chat, I was just checking it there. And because I was saying there are no Swedish teams, he goes, what about Dignitas? Who's going to tell him? Who's going to tell him? All I'm saying is, who's going to tell him? Who's going to tell him? Like, spoiler, Dignitas is dead, mate. That's over. Like, what are you talking about? There's no Dignitas. What are you talking about?
Pretty much.
Have you not been keeping up with the news? I don't know.
That's like, that's old news as well. Forrest is streaming every morning, dude. All right.
Do you get more viewers than Forrest?
What's that?
Do you get more viewers than Forrest?
No, Forrest gets like a couple thousand.
Oh, right, fair enough.
No, he's popping off. He's doing a great job. It's like, that's the thing. You have that content trio now because it's like, it's Get Right, it's Kenny, and it's Forrest, and then they stack together and play FPL.
That's genius. Yeah, that's good.
So it's like, it's really smart on their part, and so they're killing it. And so Freiburg hops on as well, I think. And so it's like, now you've actually got like a little core guys of like actually good guys to watch streaming CS again, which I think is sick. And they get on early in the morning as well, so they start around like 9:30, and they're nailing it. So I mean, yeah, it's good for them. Like, super sick. Really stoked for them.
Next question.
Yeah. I had 3,000 the other day. Yeah, I had some. It was that dude who's starting shit. He went on Twitter and he was like, "This guy, you know, he's alt right, whatever, with 3,000 viewers." Yeah, about me. He's like, "With 3,000 viewers." I was like, "What the fuck? 3,000 viewers? There's no way." He's like, "Oh well, maybe that was just a typo, but everything else was true." And it's just like bald lie after bald lie, and you're like, "Well, fantastic. You're a reasonable person. Definitely can talk."
And you were like, "Come on, Bardolph, don't keep taking it personally about the major. It's already passed on it." Whatever.
All right. GROGcoin questions. If you want to know, you go into the Inside on Esports Discord and you hop in there. That'll give you exactly GROGcoin is currency of Inside on Esports. And so if you hold a certain number of GROGcoins, you get to ask the questions.
Cost money. It does cost money, though.
It does cost money. It's a way to support the stream. It's a way to support the show. So thank you, everybody who's been supporting it. And thanks, everybody, we always have a bunch of good questions. So we're going to go ahead and start hopping into those. But so first question of the week. Blaz, can you predict what the biggest controversy at the Rio Major will be?
Like, here's the problem. They mean like fun ones, I think, Sam, like, you know, like a player gets bantered or like this talent thing. I actually think the sad thing is, I alluded to it earlier, there's a world where someone gets killed or robbed at gunpoint or seriously beaten up and injured.
Likely, like somebody gets stuck up or robbed or something.
Yeah. And by the way, God forbid it's a pro. Imagine a pro just walk the street and get beaten up. Now that would be the end for me. I can't handle it, mate.
Yeah, but that is something definitely that could happen. You almost want to call it that's something violent, something, because you're going to have people who are going to be walking around who may not know how to read the streets, may not know how to like read the situation, and so they could get taken advantage. I mean, listen, to put things into context, in Brazil now, there are so many scooter and drive-by robberies that it's now legal for you to either to just run the people over with your car. So the robbers, right? You can literally run them over with your car, and you will not be held accountable for that. It's just an act of self-defense now. So you can use your car to run people over, and that's fine.
You remember that game from the 90s, that PC game called Carmageddon, where that's what you did. You just drove people over in a car. That's just Brazil
like
now.
You're playing GTA.
I know.
In fucking Brazil now. I know. And you know, or how many stars you can get. How many
like, what, dude? What the fuck is this? Also, what? Even though it's kind of based, what is the analogy there of like? And so instead of like reduce crime, it's like no, allow you to run them over with a car. That's it. They are going to go GTA, like to stop prostitution, just like GTA. You'll be able to just kill them afterwards and take the money back. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are these policies? I know every citizen who votes for me will be armed with a machine gun and 4 hand grenades. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
All right, next question. Snake Gold. What's one wacky format that you would love to see in a tournament? What's one wacky format?
You got one? Come on.
I mean, it's still Chargers only. Like, I've heard so much talk about this for so much time, and it actually sounds like a really entertaining, interesting model. So I'd like to see that, like an actual tournament with like legit teams, actual strategic minds, you know, try to adapt to that format and make that work. I think that could be really cool. So yeah, I'd like to see that format go in Chargers only.
I had this idea a while ago, and I think it's so fucking fire. No one else gets it. You know when you get that period, Semmler, where a new map gets released, like Ancient, Vertigo, Nuke, Right, what always happens is for the first month, every team that can permabans it or switches their permaban, and they practice it as little as possible, usually because people think the new map sucks. And then you get the odd team that like bones up to get really good. And the real problem is if people play the map enough, a la Vertigo, a la Nuke, eventually actually it becomes accepted and people sort of figure out, right, it's not as bad as I thought. There's sort of like there's a bit of play here, and you just switch to whatever the newest one is. Like, okay, fuck Ancient though, we'll keep that one out. Here's what you should do. When a new map comes out, hold a big LAN with the top teams. It's only on that map. So when Ancient come out, you have a tournament, it's just Ancient. And what happens is everyone comes in, and we're all only played for 2 weeks. But that's the fun, and there's big prize money, And let's see who wins. Let's just make it. We're all going to learn Ancient by playing it, by the way. And then whoever wins, and they're the best Ancient team at the moment. Just do it once. It only has to be once a year, once every time a map comes out. That'd be a fucking interesting tournament, wouldn't it?
That would be cool to see the top teams forced to play it and not put off. Yeah. And that's like... No, but that's how Nip won their major. So I mean, like it is funny with Cobblestone and just everybody playing Cobble. Like that was definitely a bit touch and go there. It's a good thing Freiburg was as good as he was on that map. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened. But yeah,
mate, I'd love to know essentially who programmed that randomizer, because it was like that randomizer was on some
bit too. It was a bit suspicious.
So let me see. Nip's in really bad form for Florence feeding. So basically, as long as we get, let's see, 6 of the 7 maps, we probably win. Let's see what the third map is. Cobblestone again. Oh no! Like fucking hell, that was so rigged. Wasn't it? That whole thing was so rigged. That's a joke.
I would not be surprised.
I allege as a joke that it was rigged. I of course don't really think it was rigged. Valve would never rig anything.
Of course not.
Because rigging is actually a skilled craft that requires you know what you're doing and also pull it off. I think they just fucked it up. I think they just did a bad format with the fucking randomizer, didn't they?
You think so? I think they can't ban themselves for life. So, I guess that is just, getting called fired, whatever. What can okay, Architect Korean esports based Joe. What can CSGO learn from Valorant?
Well, I mean, for format, I told you, their World Championship has double elim. They have all sorts of interesting things. They have a couple
well, there you go. That's probably the takeaway.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's not much, I don't think. Like, I think they do a lot of stuff worse, so don't really give a fuck.
There is one thing that I remember, because I haven't put that much time into it, and I don't follow the pro scene at all. But the one thing I did remember was, like, the warm-up map, which was pretty cool. I liked that.
All right.
Like, just a space you could hop into and try. I mean, obviously, you have heroes in Valorant, so it's nice to have a space where you can, like, try their abilities out and shit.
Agents, but yeah.
But, sorry?
They're called agents, but whatever, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's all right, whatever. Let's keep going.
It's just, it would be cool to have like a warm-up map that you could hop into on CS and just have it be a space where it's like, okay, now you're queuing, you're waiting for your mates to get online, and you're just hopping around and, shooting some targets like Aim Lab or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. So that was one thing that I liked on Valorant. Yeah, get fact checked. I know exactly, Smiley.
Well, actually, they're called agents, if you knew.
Osk Vaj, CS 1.3 or QuakeWorld, and why? This is a you question.
Oh, easy. I'll take QuakeWorld. In fact, one thing that's mega based, people don't even know, is I don't even know for 1v1 that I'd have QuakeWorld. I think maybe Quake 3 was better for that, or Quake 2 or something. But the one I want is Team Deathmatch QuakeWorld. You'd have to sadly get DDK, because he'd be the guy, if we draw him in now, would actually confirm what I'm saying. If people don't know, QuakeWorld TDM might be the most high-skilled but also tactical game ever made in esports. Because, spoiler, QuakeWorld is a game that was never nerfed in any context. It has amazing air movement. You can bunny up the whole time, but everyone's doing it. All the weapons are super powerful and overtuned, like the rocket launcher, the lightning gun, and there's a hierarchy. You want the rocket launcher and the lightning gun. They're way better than anything else. The middle guns are harder, so if someone else has a rocket launcher, you have a nail gun, you have to outskill them, outposition them. It's all skill, but then because it's team deathmatch, it's about controlling the objectives and then using that objective. Like you get the quad, then you have to defend the quad runner so he gets as many kills. So what makes it amazing is it's about like tactically holding areas of the map. So when you're not in control, you have to hold the shitty areas, then get the odd rocket launcher, then get back into control with the key fight. And then when you're in control, it's like run up the score, right? It's like being on serve in tennis, like right now, let's go fucking ham. And you go as much as you can. Like that's why if you do it right, you could be like 20 frags down. This has happened with like 30 seconds to go, and some guy gets the quad. You run it perfectly, gets 21 frags, and you win the game. And the maps, because they were played for like 15 years. It's like the best CS maps, like Inferno. They never get old. They just get amazing when everyone knows all the insides and outs. So even though it's a Mad Boomer Takes, it's obviously a mega old game that no one's going to go and play now because it was made in like the fucking 90s. It just is, because it had no watering down and it wasn't made for plebs. It just would be, it's like snooker. It's like a super high level mega niche sport basically. So I would pick QuakeWorld. There you go.
Yeah, dude, I'm like, I do actually regret missing that whole wave of Quake, and how like James tried to do it again with Diabolical. He tried to bring it back, but I mean that kind of dropped off a little bit, and it doesn't really have too much of a player base anymore, which is kind of sad. But like the 1v1 FPS arena, like that is just, it's so cool. The stuff that you can do in it, it's just like the constant, like the ability to turn it around and have those comebacks. Like you say, right? You're like playing around on the edges. You're trying to like little graft here and there, just take an armor, take an item, and then you can eventually work it around, and then you can have that insane upset. Like if there was a game that I could cast, that would probably be it. Like actually casting Quake and getting to cast those kinds of matches, because I think that would be like the opportunity for just watching sick matches would just be through the roof in that game. It'd be so much fun to cast. So like, but that was Joe Miller and that was James. I mean, that's why people consider them to be like one of the great casting duos, was when they were casting QuakeWorld, or was it QuakeWorld?
No,
or was
Quake,
it
Quake Live?
They casted Quake Live together, right? But like, yeah, casting Quake together, I mean, they killed it. So yeah, super cool. Actually, now it makes me want to go back and watch them now. Maybe I'll do that later. All right. Mini idea. What is a fan, and can you list the types of fans from best to worst? Well, a fan is usually something that blows air on you. And so, I mean, I guess best would be the electric fans. Worst would probably have to be the handheld, manual labor fans. Because
especially the ones made in Brazil. So basically made in Brazil fans, I guess, is the way I would awkwardly phrase what the worst fans are, easily.
There you go.
They almost like fuck up even the vibe of a room.
It's weird how that works. Yeah. Just throwing it all over the place.
And also, if you try setting it on like a dial, it goes up and it's like, 5, 10, 50. But then when it goes like between like 20 and 30, you can't put it like almost near the middle. If you go to like before 25, it keeps ticking back to 23 or 26. It won't fucking go to 24 somehow. I don't get it. Whatever.
It's funny how that works, yeah.
By the way, I'll give you a random aside because people might not know this. This is true. If you ever look this up and you go to Korea, some people still believe this. There's a famous conspiracy where in like the 70s or something in Seoul in Korea, because people were using, they claim, too much power with all like the AC units because it gets really hot in the summer. They basically told people, the government told you, don't use fans when you sleep because I want you to turn it off at night. Because if you use a fan and you're sleeping, somehow when you're sleeping, you get less oxygen. And what happens is the fan, when it spins, it cuts the molecules of H2O. So they're splitting apart and suddenly there won't be enough oxygen in the room and you all die. So they all started going like, bloody hell, turn it off. And so there's a famous thing that when I even had this happen, a friend was like, you aren't sleeping with that fan on, are you? I was like, well, of course I am. It's absolutely red hot there. He was going like, you will die. And I was like, I definitely won't die. I've done it loads of fucking times in England. What are you talking about? He was going, you will die. I was like, you're fucking out with me. It's not going to do anything, is it, you idiot? Like, whatever.
What do you mean, Duncan? Don't you trust the science?
That's a joke. He's like, yeah, exactly. Believe the science. Yeah. I know, it's mental, isn't it? Google that. It's real. Google it.
No way.
You're going to think it's a joke. It's real, I'm telling you.
That's amazing. All right. Fucking top shelf, Keck. Henoda, do you believe the number of international teams relative to national teams will increase or decrease over the next few years? I feel like we just answered that with the NIP question in the sense that with the NIP roster change, in the sense that it feels like that is actually going to be the way that things go. It goes forward. It's going to be international now. It feels like we're going to have fewer national teams because it's more difficult to actually find all 5 roles at an acceptable level to compete in tier 1 from a single nation. In the same, it really does feel like we're going to start seeing teams just go the international route and maybe stick it out during the rough patch, but that's going to be the way it goes, moves going forward. What do you think, Doug?
Yeah, I think essentially the French and the Swedish scenes are the canary in the coal mine. We've just got to a point in esports where we don't have these big scenes where the players themselves can scout the next talents and tell you who to sign. And we don't have the GMs who are super good eye tests. So at the moment, you've got to just look at essentially like Football Manager, the top 50 players in the world, 100 players in the world, and pick 5 from that and make it work. That's kind of what we're doing in CS right now.
Pretty much it, yeah. Okay, next question. RNGesus. How far ahead do you think the level of competition is in CS compared to Valorant, if at all? Could you take a Na'Vi or FaZe and drop them into Valorant and have them be a top team within a few months?
I mean, the problem is when he said months, it invalidated the question. If he meant like in a month, because they're so like skilled, that would be interesting. I don't think so, by the way. I actually think because they've done years and years of Valorant now, people like Optic and FPX and fucking Paper, they would be better because they've just got so much tenure in the game, haven't they? Here's what people are doing. You're mistaking that people are good at Counter-Strike. That doesn't mean, by the way, they're just god gamers. It's very rare you get the Forest type guys who are just god
Basically,
gamers.
Forest is the one
They're super. They're the outliers. The rest of the people are just good, and not only at CS, by the way. They're only good at this version of CS. Like you've seen some of the 1.6 players that were never that good, or Source players that actually never made it in CS:GO. So you cannot do that. If you think like, CS:GO is superior to Valorant, so Simple would be the best in Valorant. No, that's like saying that you think UFC is superior to boxing, so that like fucking, let me think, John Jones would beat like Mayweather if it was 10 years. They wouldn't. Because the problem is Mayweather is just, even if you think boxing's worse, he is way better at boxing than John Jones would be in 6 months, a year. You have to 30 years of practice. So no, essentially, like I think you're actually invalidating Valorant. You're acting like Valorant's a little kids game that has no talent. They have loads of people playing that game now, mate. It's not as big as CS, but it's not a joke esport either. I don't like the game, by the way. I'm probably never gonna like it, but whatever.
No, it's a simpler game. That's the thing. I mean, you're gonna watch CS. I think you're just gonna be drawn to CS over it. That's simple. Toby, what current or former CS pro would you like to interview, regardless of language?
That's a good question. I'll tell you why that's a good question. Because if people know me, I have a rule, which is I basically almost never tell people who won't do interviews or who say no to me. As in, like when I ask a player to do a reflections interview, they are giving me hours of their time and allowing me to ask them whatever I want. So I view that as them actually doing me a favor to some degree. So as a result, in that case, if they go, I don't want to do that, I'm not going to go like all the dickheads in the scene do, like, he won't do an interview with me, guys. And because that just puts stupid pressure on them and tries to paint them in a bad light. So what I never do is I never answer for people who haven't interviewed yet, because I'd put that pressure on them. So what I'll do is he nailed it because he said like, no, language is no problem. Well, obviously there's people I can't speak to because of the language, isn't there? Or maybe they're not in esports anymore. So I'll pick an obscure one. I would maybe pick like something like Savior from Brood War, the Korean StarCraft player. The reason why he'd be amazing is because not only is he Korean and was a genius player, but he was the one that was banned for match fixing in like 2011. So as a result, 2010 maybe. So that's why I'd love to interview him, because you can't interview him because he's sort of secreted away in Korea because it's so shameful. I'd love to interview him and basically get him to just tell me like straight up what I went on. What was he going? Why did he do it? Like why give up being a great player? And spoiler, here's how I know you won't ever get this interview. It's not about me. I've tried asking other Koreans about him in interviews, and I'm not joking. I won't say who they are. They stop the interview, Semmler, and tell the translator, take that out and do not ask me about that player. I'm not comfortable talking about it. Because to even comment on this guy, you have it's just group mind in Korea. You have to all agree he's a total piece of shit, and because he match fixed and stuff and did betting, that he's just evil, and you can never even compliment his game. Do you know what's mad? They even memory hold him out of history. He won in like an OSL, and it just has no picture on it as to who won it. They memory hold him.
Did they go to the same extent with Life?
Same shit. By the way, they not only did this is why people in the West don't know what they're fucking around with match fixing. In Korea, they also like pursue you in court with this, by the way. The police take you to court and try to like sue you and put you in prison. Obviously, you end up with probation and a fine, but that's what they try to do. They try to ruin your life over there if you do that shit.
That's brutal, man. Because I mean, he was a freak. He was awesome.
He was also awesome. They were both amazing players.
Royal Rotor, right? I think he was a Royal Rotor for GSL and everything. So it's just, man, yeah, that's tragic when you have certain situations like that. That's really rough. I mean, if anything, you kind of want to go in that line as well and find out like what happened there.
Who would you like to talk to? Because in your case, you don't really do interviews anyway, so you pick anyone, right? Who would you pick?
Yeah, no, I mean, it would be like it would just be, I would interview like guys that you can't reach right now, like Device. Just be like, dude, what's going on? But like not a public interview. Literally just like a one-on-one interview. Just be like, dude, what's going on?
I actually know the real person I'd like to interview. It's not that I can't. He even would say yes to the interview. He just wouldn't do this type of interview. Because you know when he said language is like no barrier? Well, I'm going to interpret that very loosely. When he says language, he means like the setting of the interview doesn't have to be traditional. I can actually just change it. So here's who I would like to interview on camera. Even though it's not actually a real truth serum. You know, famously, that's thing from spy novels of like sodium pentothal. If you give it to them, it's like the idea that the truth. I would like to just get Anders Bloom, sit him down, inject him with the truth serum, and then on camera, I would just ask him open-ended questions like, Anders, what do you think about space travel? Or, you know, just anything like that. And I just let it, in this scenario, I'd also just feed him loads of energy drinks before. He'd just be like, then, you know, you just say all the craziest shit. Because what you don't know, guys, is Anders has mastered this secret where he pretends everything he's saying some absurd, silly, frivolous thing, but he secretly like sneaks in his real thoughts under there. And some of his maddest thoughts, you would think, oh, just a silly thought. No, that's what's. So if you just know it for real, I bet he has some fucking mental real thoughts and beliefs. I'd love to get to the bottom of that.
Without a doubt.
Yes. And I would also straight up ask him stuff like, now, Anders, I asked you a lot of crazy questions about, you know, underground bases, the military, you know, sexual politics. One last question. How much day rate did you ask for at this one event in 2017 where I think you either tried to ask for too much and got me undercut, or I would be petty like that as well. Wouldn't you like to know who actually did undercut, who was asking for too much or whatever? Well, the joke is, the way I'm asking Semmler, wouldn't you like to know when Anders was asking for too much money, you were like, brother, I'd like to know that. Listen, there's a reason you're sat there, Thorin, and not Anders.
That is the joke, isn't it? I mean, what do you think about the ESL Impact League, Anders? I mean, I think Anders wants to get paid as well. So that's what he thinks about the ESL Impact League. But, you know, good on him.
I could actually believe, by the way, that Anders even enjoys it. If you don't know, one thing I always thought was good about Anders is he does have a very pure love for like esports and CSGO. Like the joke is he would get hyped up about players I think is shit. Like I have to watch like the top teams. I think like big matches, stakes are high. Anders can just watch like any old players playing and be like, yeah, I love this. Like, they got a stand in. That's cool. Like he actually does sort of. So I couldn't even believe he gets into the impact shit, mate.
Sure.
And I did see some of those mad dodgy pictures that you always see where it was on social media, where it was like everyone would obviously be on the night out after the impact event or whatever. And it's just loads of wrecked women and like the managers and the coaches were all males. And then just Anders at the back, like with loads of them around, like, just pissed out his fucking Danish mind. I speculate.
Just speculating, of course. All right, BZ. Does Glaive's Blastralis and current resume go against his legacy, comparing him to Kerrigan? And if Glaive and Kerrigan continue their current trajectories, would Kerrigan pass Glaive?
Oh, that's kind of a two-parter. Right, on the first part, does it like, you know, ruin his... No, here's the thing. What he did is still what he did, and you cannot take away those majors, all those championships, all the success, getting people like Device. By the way, here's a good angle if you want to give props to Glaive. He got Device more, at one point in time, more MVPs than even Simple and NiKo and Cold Zero could win, and he wasn't better than those players. That means the fucking team was doing a banging job too. Like, they all put him in a great position to win. So I would say what Glaive did is amazing. He is still... Listen, I actually might even still pick him as the GOAT. I think it's an easy scenario. I just always thought people never gave Kerrigan his due because he hadn't won the major. So now people are going too far the other way, because I was always making like the devil's advocate case for like, we got to at least consider him. He's done great things with international squads, different. So now I think it's more like they're quite similar. Like it's a different case for each. One did it internationally with all these other squads. One did it with one Danish team, but was insanely successful. I will say the rest of their careers could actually obviously complete the story because Kerrigan's still going. That's the problem Glaive has, is if Glaive stays in Astralis and they don't get good players, he's not going to win majors, and therefore Kerrigan can start stacking them. And so here's the angle no one's thought of, Semmler, and I'll just phrase it like this and you'll get what I mean. Imagine Kerrigan keeps winning and he wins the next major too, and then he wins a bunch more tournaments and he gets the Grand Slam. Now think of this. He now has the majors and years he could compare to what Glaive did in Astralis. And then all the years we all said Kerrigan was a failure when he was on like the second or third best team in the world, those would be his off years. So he would win by default because Glaive would have his amazing period and then shit years. Kerrigan would have the longevity. He would have like the elite. That's the angle that would be interesting to me. But it depends if Glaive can win again.
Age, though, because Kerrigan's 32 years old. Glaive is only 27.
Well, they would have already told you before, though, Semmler, to be fair. 32, you should be too old. So, if anything, he's actually pioneering the field, right, to see how far you can go.
He is. He certainly
And by
is.
the way, he frags for a fucking guy that old. He's not even terrible.
The thing is, like, it's the drop-off is always kids. So Kerrigan has gotten married. And now he may actually start, you get
Right,
married.
that's true.
Usually
Yeah.
the next thing along is kids. He's 32. It's probably getting him because we saw that time and time again with the different players. As soon as they start actually getting older, it's not the age that does it. It's just the responsibility. They have more things weighing on them. They're not just grinding the same way that they were before they had more responsibility. So if anything, that's what I think will like slow Kerrigan down. It's not going to be an in-game sort of thing. It's going to be he starts having kids, he starts having a family, he starts having other responsibilities outside of the game that are starting to divide his attention so that he can't fully commit the way that he can now. I mean, it feels like we've had enough examples of that with the Polish team, for example. I mean, Pasha, Neotaz, Forrest, it's like as you get older, it just starts to, that starts to be the case. It's just, you're not as able to just fully commit to the game as you were when you were younger. That could very well be the deciding factor here, I think, with Kerrigan. It's just that he's older than Glaive.
Yeah,
Glaive has got a kid, to be fair. So I mean that actually he's ahead of Kerrigan in that respect. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see if that actually kind of like lines up together, and so that they're actually still competing along the same variables. It's just literally age at that point that's separating them. All right, it's go. Does any updates on the new CS game? I'm assuming you're saying you mean Counter-Strike Source 2 engine port, and in that case, no, not that I've heard. Have you heard anything?
No, there was just that thing about Source. Yeah, no one knows anything about Counter-Strike 2. And spoiler, the people who always lie and say they do just do it for attention, don't they? So I'm waiting for some real news on that, obviously.
Yeah, we all are. All right, Taser. When NiKo retires, would you be open to the idea of recording a cover version of 80s hit song "Take My Breath Away" titled "Take My Bread Away"? Not bad.
That's mainly just a self-contained joke. It's not a real question, is it?
No, I think.
Here's what people don't think about.
That's just a comment.
I will give you a quick piece of gold though. Right? You know how everyone tells me I'll never get certain interviews, and then I just have like a 3-hour interview with Forrest, or I have some legendary 1.6 Pro you didn't even know was on the internet still. They just come along and do it. Where NiKo has fucked up, and so is Simple, and I'll tell them right now, if they never rectify this, they will regret it one day, is one day, I know this seems impossible to believe, but in the same way as, there's this thing, Semmler, where modern day, I don't know if you've heard this, but the modern day youth, and even the young basketball pros, say shit like Michael Jordan wasn't the best because he just played against plumbers. Because they got the years wrong, mate. They're thinking like the 60s or the 50s or something. So they're thinking naively that Michael Jordan just played against bombs and he wasn't actually that good, whereas they think it's all hyper athletes. That was not true at all. It's different rules and all the rest of it, right? In a similar fashion, if I bring up that Potty was the greatest 1.6 player, you're all going to go, no, he wasn't. Neo and Forrest were. But he's in the convo. But because you didn't watch him, you don't care about Potty. So here's the problem. You can be the GOAT. You can be the best. You can be the legend. Give it 3 years after you retire. Give it 5 years. God forbid, give it 10. You will not be remembered. You will barely be remembered. You will be considered worse than the few. And nobody will know your story. They'll never know why you did it, what you did. So here's where NiKo and Simple have fucked up. Because I can tolerate banter or even just saying, I don't like, I think you are wrong. But the way they've like openly insulted my like knowledge, like my dedication to my craft, it's suggesting all I do is tweet. I don't do any like work. Here's what they don't know and what fans don't know. Fans try to taunt me and they go, you'll never get an interview with NiKo. Other way around, dickhead. I'll have every interview with every great Hall of Famer telling amazing stories, celebrating their careers, going into good teammates, having great laughs years later when there's no resentment anymore. But I won't have a Reflections with Simple and NiKo unless they change something and do something behind the scenes privately to apologise. There won't ever be one with them. And in fact, people will say, not to them because no one will remember them, people will say to me, why don't you have a Simple Reflections? Why do you just do it with other players? And I'll go, because Simple was a dickhead and said I didn't have a job and that I should just go away and I'm a loser. So I won't do an interview with him. So who really loses out there, fans? I already know all the shit. I knew these guys. I know the stuff behind the scenes. I know all the things their teammates did. I watched all the tournaments. I don't lose out. You lose out and they lose out. So there you go. Let it be on your head, dickheads. Breadheads.
There you go. Alongside the loaf. All right. Let's see. Coach Paul, what conspiracy or non-mainstream narrative have you previously bought into, but now realize you were wrong about?
Oh, I've got a good one for you.
I'm actually kind of drawing a blank off the top of my head.
The key thing here, Semmler, you have to remember the second part, you'll fuck it up. I was going to make a joke and do like, fat makes you fat or whatever, but that's actually not, that was a mainstream opinion. That's the problem. It has to be non-mainstream. So essentially, is there anything wacky you used to think, but actually now like, nah, it's not really the case?
No, but that's not it. It's what he's talking about here is like what conspiracy or what non-mainstream thing have you found is wrong? So like, shit, I don't even know what would be like, masks work now, apparently.
Is that a is that the current? Oh, because that's the current theory of people who are stuck in the. That is the weirdest thing about this time period, isn't it? It's like different countries are in different years. Because I've had the same people tell me that, Semmler. You know, when I did that video about not working majors, at one point I say that doing the thing they said wouldn't even give you protection, and then they go, "Well, it would. It would save everyone's life in the arena." It's like, what year are you in? What year are you in? Do you learn nothing? Apparently, you don't learn anything. Stop reading fucking newspapers, you moron. It's mental, innit? I know, just stop.
No, it's just
poison in your mind.
I can't remember who originally made this joke, but it's just like I've run out of conspiracies because they've all came true.
There you go.
So, like that's the thing. Like I can't even think of one off the top of my head right now where it's like, oh yeah, that was definitely a conspiracy or not.
Yeah, I've got one.
All right, go ahead.
I would say this fits all the criteria.
Go for it.
You know, there's a type of person who does believe in conspiracy, but it only goes this deep. And this isn't technically a mainstream take. If you said this on the news, you'd get fucked up. And their take is, yeah, there is loads of like banking and shady stuff and corruption and conspiracy, but it's all just about money. They just want more money. Here's the thing. You are the biggest fucking pleb in the world because you're the one who is mastered by money. You're the one who doesn't have enough money. You're the one who needs money to do anything. The super hyper wealthy don't even need money, you imbecile. Like, for example, if a super famous sports star wants like a supercar, they just give him it for advertising. If you're some like celebrity guy, if you don't know, during all those years when we couldn't travel and had all they used to just go on fly on private jets with no restrictions, wouldn't even get checked when they went there, just waltz into a casino. Then they'd pick up a girl, come back out, no mask to get that. You know, when you were all going, we got them. Look, we got them. They were having a secret party without masks. You idiot. That's what they're allowed to do. That's the world they live in. You're the pleb. That was never for them. That was for you, you idiot. That was never going to be policed on them. So the big conspiracy, I think, is this. They just do it for money. No, that's level one, and that's to keep morons like you like in the fucking cul-de-sac of the conspiracy. There are way bigger reasons. Like, essentially, without revealing it, I think it literally goes even beyond like material reality into some spiritual realm. Like, I think there's forces at play people don't even understand. So I've gone too much there. Go back.
This is like what are we talking about? Like principalities here that we're starting to move into that sort of direction. Yeah.
Level.
Yeah, I can get on that. I can get on board that train now. It just feels like it's really, it feels like, not that you're, because that's the thing. People just think like, oh, conspiracies, there's no logical path or no logical way to get to them or any of that. It's like, no, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like every step along the way was a logical, like here, now you're just going to keep going. And the problem is that it then, it's not a joke. It's like, oh, I can see past the matrix or whatever. It's like, no, now you just start to pick up on the other things that you were missing out on before. And then you're opening up this path here. And then now you're interested by this front. And you realize that all of this stuff is like, it's not even conspiracies. It's just there. Like Islam. Like the more I look into Islam, the more I realize like, no, it's not a conspiracy. It's not a fringe. It's like, that's literally in the Quran. That's like literally right there in the book.
Just having a lie. Exactly.
They don't even need to lie about it. Like it's just there. And then it's like, oh no, that's extreme or fundamental. It's like, yeah, you're fundamental. Yeah, it's in the book. It's like right there. So, I mean, but before you would have said like, oh no, that's just terrorists or whatever. It's just like, no, that's literally in the fucking book, guys. So it's that's actually more of like the trippy thing along this line where it feels like you just can't stop because all the stuff that it's just all out in plain sight now in some way. It's really weird.
I'll tell you what's funny. Whenever you talk about those topics, everyone's going to claim, like you said there, somewhere, but there's no basis to it. It's all just nonsense made up. No, the real joke is this. That means you haven't looked into the real narratives that are mainstream. They're all nonsense. They're all made up. They're held together with nothing. The facts don't follow. Here's why I know these things and you guys don't. Because I use the journalistic method. I don't just hear a story. They're doing this. I track down the story. I read the actual statement. And I look, which company funded this? Right? What was their aim? What did they say in a white paper 5 years? You don't do that. That's real academic research, for fuck's sake. The point is, when you actually look at the real stories, it all falls apart. And by the way, anyone in the Twitch chat, like, conspiracy, you're the fucking moron. Just get out the chat. We don't need you. If you're a sub, unsub, get that money, shove it right up your fucking ass, you imbecile.
Hi, Oppenheimer. I see you. All right. Let's move on to the next one. IWD, please. My girlfriend. Okay. Given no other context or instructions, how do you define, pick an MVP?
All right, here's what's good, Semmler.
I mean,
you're going to answer this question, and here's why. Because that person asked a question on Summoning Insight that was one of the most offensive questions I've ever been asked. Where what they did is, you know how I always disclose, like, you maybe don't know this, because you know that company Snipe that we worked with? I actually bought shares in them, and they made a product in League of Legends called ProView, which let you watch it recorded the player's screen. You could see all the mouse clicks. It was way better than watching like the live stream. And so what I would always do on shows, because people won't know my connection to this company from Counter-Strike, is that I would always say, by the way, disclaimer, I do have shares in that company. So when I say it's a good program, you should know I also have a potential conflict of interest and an incentive, right? This guy tried to take that. By the way, you know, I'm not actually obliged to do that every time. Like HL TV disclosed it once on a website ever, and they were like, ever in history, you should know now. I would say every now and then, especially if you were like criticizing some company, you should put the disclaimer in. But in this case, what happened was this. There was a guy who was a patron of mine, Semmler, but he's also a famous analyst in League of Legends. He's from like Singapore or something. It's called Jensen Gore. But because this little twat noticed that he was a patron of mine, he tried to imply that when I had that guy on shows, I never disclosed it, and I was doing it, or, you know, maybe I was doing it to like make people think like, oh, he secretly pays me to let him on shows and ask him questions and make him look good. And the reason why that's so whack is because, first of all, it's $50 a month. What he's implying is I would give up 21 professional years of never lying or ever committing a crime or ever doing anything actually immoral, and I would waste it all for $50 a month. By the way, I piss on $50 a month. Then secondly, you don't ever disclaim it. In every one of my videos, whether he's on another channel or not, on my videos, he's in the shout out at the end. I've disclosed it more times than anyone's ever disclosed anything ever about something that could be a conflict. So here's the problem. To take it all the way back, you can answer the question. This guy, I don't give a fuck how many grog coins you've got, homie. I'd slap that grog out your motherfucking wench mouth. I ain't answering your questions. You have lost your privilege. So you can answer him, though, Sam. He's paid you to answer. Go on.
Fair enough. Now that the stage has been set. How do I define, pick an MVP?
Like, what's your criteria? How do you decide who the MVP should be? There's a big debate. People often have it.
I mean, there is a big debate. It feels like there's a bunch of, eye test plays a big role. You're going to be watching the games. You're going to be seeing the impact. There's certain intangibles as well that can be waved in. So, there is like a little bit of a gut feel to it. Obviously, there's going to be you're going to be looking at some of the stats like ADR or KD and kind of getting a weight in on that. The rating, it has its flaws, but it's still pretty accurate in terms of like seeing what the impact is now, rating 2.0 at least, where they've wrapped a bunch of other stuff into it. But that's why I always add like the eye test as well, because it's like you can have a top rating, but maybe this other guy had just like way more clutches or something like that actually made the difference. So I don't actually have like a framework that I would use that I would say like this is how I've thought it out, where I follow this specific framework for judging an MVP. It feels like a lot more of the time for me it's been just apparent, like gut feeling watching the game. Like I watch the finals, and having watched the finals, I know who's actually had the most impact in that finals, and so that's going to be the MVP, whether it's through clutches or whatever. It's just the watching of it. So that's where we'll leave it at that. Simple winning that MVP over twists was so wrong. Yeah, that's the thing where you just follow stats.
It wasn't though.
Sorry?
It wasn't wrong.
It wasn't wrong?
Like, that was an enormous tournament, dude. That was IEM Cologne. Do you know how many best of threes they played in that tournament? What he's doing there is, cause Twists was the better player in the final, he's acting like the rest of the tournament didn't exist. It's not the finals MVP. It's for the whole tournament. Like, at the end of that, Simple was still like way higher rated than, like, dude, if you want to go stats aren't everything, but he was like magnitudes above Twists in stats, because essentially everything but the final he was dominating. So it's like, look, you can still pick it if you want the other criteria, but he's acting like it was a robbery. Like, oh, what fucking round?
No.
You know?
Maybe you can say that if you're
preference.
just looking at the finals, like you say, where I'm just saying, like, I watch the finals and I decide, if like
in the finals,
in that context, then fine, fair enough. But you're right to say, like, okay, you have to, like, that's the thing, you have to take the whole context into the whole tournament into context. If you're going to be giving a tournament MVP, then that also includes the group phase and on.
Of course, yeah.
So. Yeah, it just feels like it's obviously going to be a lot more along the eye test, just watching for me, and then I'll get the feel. Panthos, how do you think the fan reviled 2-game set from LEC past would do in Counter-Strike? Any value you think it could bring? We've had that.
They used to do best of two. Yeah, we used to have Pro League. That used to be the Pro League format, if you remember, online. I think it sucks.
Yeah, I mean,
because here's what he doesn't know. He doesn't know this. The reason in League it makes sense, Semmler, I don't know if you know this, but like Dota, the map in League is asymmetrical. It's not identical. So, for example, if you're on one of the sides, first of all, you get pick selection. Secondly, the map itself means that like one of the bot lanes has like easier access to the dragon, has a different set of bushes that you gank from. One has a tri-brush, one has one like wall with a long brush, right? Well, depending on which side you're on, you might have an advantage. So what they did with Best of One is they meant that you played one on each side of the map, so it evened out like... You get my point anyway. That doesn't exist in CSGO, so you wouldn't need it. Just play best of threes.
Yeah, just play best of threes and play single elim or double elim if you really want to stand out in terms of like a playoff. That would be pretty slick. Not a fan of like the best of one blast format, for example. Skazord, all animals in the planet can now be domesticated by humans, and you get to have any animal you want as a pet. What do you pick and why?
Oh, so what was the first part again?
So all animals in the planet can now be domesticated by humans.
Ah, I see. Just what would you pick as a pet?
And you get to have any animal you want as a pet.
So they obviously want us to pick something weird. What would you pick?
Yeah, he wants something weird. That's the thing. But like they can be domesticated by humans, and you get to have any animal. For whatever reason, I thought I would be like riding a rhinoceros or something, and that would just be like no traffic ever again because I'll just
really Semmler. Wouldn't have expected you'd be a rhino lover.
Hey,
that's pretty good. That's pretty good. There you go. It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Good
yeah, not bad. Not bad. Okay. Along similar lines, I think I would pick a hyena because here's the thing. I'm pretty much used to just being around fucking, starving, hungry jackals, just ready to fight for every little thing in a little group and just take down the king god fucking Mufasa. That is me. Whatever. I fumbled at the end. I don't know shit. Whatever. Give me a hyena. There you go.
All right, there you go. All right, I'm getting to the tail end here. Jordan. Currently, EGPA and EGCD are playing in the same Fragadelphia LAN. Should this be possible for multiple farm teams to play at the same event? We have answered this question. It was actually one of the first topics that we addressed in the show. So I feel like we did a good job answering that question there. So we'll leave it at that. Butt Pounder 420. Now that there will be a major in Rio, which pro will be the first to fall to the hordes upon hordes of 6-year-olds hell-bent on their complete and total annihilation?
I mean, the obvious one has to be someone who talks trash, because I'll tell you another thing, Semmler. There's what might fuck you up as well. Someone might go on stage and try thinking it's like every other arena. I'm going to talk trash to the Brazilian player. Listen, Cadian, I'd maybe keep it a little bit quiet at this one. You know what I mean? I'd be careful about how you talk shit, mate. It might go really badly.
Yeah. It's the 6-year-olds hell-bent on the complete and total annihilation. Like, just remember, Hiko had to have like 24-hour security down there when he actually traveled. So, I mean, you don't...
you know what's hilarious? You'll love
get
this.
Weird in Brazil.
You'll really appreciate this logic. Whenever that story's told, the Brazilians always go like this, Semmler. That's just bullshit, though. He did that because he was paranoid and he hates Brazilians. And also, he never would have even been attacked anyway, that piece of shit. He deserves to have his fucking head smashed in for lying about, but it's like, genius. In a way, you are chef's kiss as a region. It's fucking amazing, isn't it? It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's
also,
so
why did he need that? Like, what happened in that situation? What led to him feeling like he needed to have the security? It's funny how that works. A little bit weird there. All right, Zumba. Worst picture of a pro or talent used in an event, promotion, or profile.
I mean, the obvious easy ones like Creamy Moses. That's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, isn't it?
That's actually a good one.
Because they were using that on like fucking, sometimes to banter him, they'd use that as like the announcement picture over, wouldn't they?
On everything.
And when he did like Blast, it'd just be his face for that or something. Fucking hell, I know, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, dude. That's actually good. That's a top shelf one. That's a good one. Can't beat that one, actually. Worst picture of a pro or talent. Because I mean, otherwise it's just like, okay, you're gonna have a picture of a pro who's like overweight or something. It's like,
no, that's unfair. There's that one where Device does look like he has a giraffe's neck, where he's got like a periscope for a neck, like you're just like, is this photoshopped? Did they just get the head and use that tool and move it? No, it's just like the joke is Device really must just be going on like a turtle. Like, it's like there's a crowd of people like, oh, what time is the train leaving?
The lens.
No, it's still there. No, yeah, we're going the back carriage right down.
Then he shrinks back down.
Because here's the thing. I have often said when he fucked with me on Twitter, wind your neck in, Device.
Well, there you go. Cause if Smuya is the Rat King, who are the other rodent monarchs?
There's all the scumbags, basically. Like, Nell's got to be one. When you consider that shit with fucking Shiro and some of the lies he's told about us, he'd be up there. He's some sort of hamster or something.
Ryan,
else?
I think Ryan stands out.
Oh, you'll like this. I came up with it. Listen, it's going to be on a different podcast, not one on this channel. Here's what I'm going to say. Yeah. Oh, you mean Ryan at Push V?
There you go.
Yeah, that's his new name, Ryan at Push V.
Okay, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
No, his name's Ryan at Rush B, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, at Rush B. I heard Push B, and I was like,
Push
okay,
V.
Yeah, Push V.
V. The letter V.
Yes, the letter V.
I'm intentionally not saying the word. What V would he be pushing, Semmler? As if you don't even get this.
I'm out of it right now. I'm really running low on my fuse. Okay, go ahead.
Are you out of your mind? That's you of all people. You don't get that context. Holy shit! How have you missed that one, mate?
Dude, good point. Yeah.
Whatever. That's the point. Is that's just my like sarcastic nickname for him. There you go, Ryan at Push V.
That is it. Yeah, exactly.
That's who he is now. You became a meme. You wanted to be. By the way, you wanted to fuck around with the big boys. Well, you know what? You get a nickname. Enjoy the rest of history. Well, whatever will be left for you.
Oh, we don't know. Yeah.
Who knows? No,
we're all wondering.
Exactly.
We're all wondering. All right, that's gonna be it.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do.
Yeah, I think that'll do it because I'm starting to run out of fuse here, run out of strip. But dude, thanks so much again for another great show, and we'll be back next week, guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Also, I didn't mention this before, but if you made it this far, big shout out to you, and obviously thanks for the support. But also leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. If you've made it to the end, it does help to promote the show. It does get a lot of traction going. So really appreciate everybody who's been doing that so far. It does help. And so yeah, thanks everybody for leaving us a like, leaving us a subscribe, thumbs up if you're on the YouTube, and a review if you're on the podcast platforms. But that's going to be it from us this week, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.
Chris is still in the picture. Oh, still very much in the round. Oh, Chris, he's found 3. It's down to a 2-on-2. Chris, can he close this with an ace? Oh my God!
He gives him a chance at least, and this CZ kill could be everything. Finally, Zeus, he does something!
Looking for a second, he connects in. Oh, and he gets a 3rd as well. Surely he's not going to pull this off. Oh, Caldera, the man, the myth, the beast. Zyru, no help really, but he's still hitting shots. He's already got